Welcome to the Rage Select Podcast. It's time for the podcast. John, it's time for the podcast. It's podcast time.
Was that like a little bit? Like, was I supposed to join in on that? We were supposed to do harmonies?
No. Well, you were supposed to, but you didn't. And so, it's all ruined now. This is the last podcast. No, I'm just kidding. Welcome to the Rage Select Podcast, everybody. I am Jeff.
I'm John.
And yeah, we're getting ready to do the podcast. It's
getting ready. We're doing it.
We're doing it.
Live.
We're doing it right now. It's happening.
It's happening.
Right.
People are listening to it.
I think it was a bad idea, John, for me to put numbers on our podcast.
Yeah?
Because, whenever I have to name a podcast and I'm like, podcast 115, how are we still talking about literally anything on this podcast?
I know that. I know your feelings on that because I had a podcast that got up to 300 episodes.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Well, how were you still talking about anything?
It turns out I can't stop talking.
Okay.
That's kind of the thing I do.
That's a good problem to have.
I don't shut up
as a podcaster.
Luckily, I'm entertaining. Apparently.
Yep.
According to some people, I don't know. My mother.
Well, my mom thinks I'm entertaining. I don't know about any of the rest of you assholes. So I'm trying to think back to if there was. This is the point in the podcast where we usually go over what we did over the last week or so. I'm trying to think if there's anything that actually did. I found something very dangerous.
Yeah.
Yesterday, John. I found a very dangerous thing. It was a Wednesday, and I knew that you and I didn't have to record until 6. And I was like, I'm going to go down to the bar for a few hours and read my book. And I found out that the bar by my house that I go to all the time on Wednesday nights has 50-cent hot wings and $1.75 Lone Stars all night. So I ate a lot of wings, and I drank a lot of Lone Stars.
At least $50 worth.
No,
of
not
both combined.
I'd be dead.
Well, in truth, it was 2 Lone Stars, and the rest was all wings of that $50 worth.
Good God, man! So here's a question: Are you a fan of the wings?
I am not.
You're a fan of the chicken wing? You're not a fan of the chicken wing?
No, not really.
Buffalo sauce in general?
No, I'm not really big on buffalo sauce.
Right.
But
you're not. But you're not like a ketchup guy either, right? You don't like that. Or
I like ketchup on my fries and sometimes on my chicken strips.
Okay.
But outside of that,
Okay. Well, so I can tell you that there's a place here in Austin. I'm pretty sure it's a chain, right? Pluckers. This is everywhere, right?
I am familiar with Pluckers. I've been food poisoned there quite a few times.
Oh, yeah. No, they used to be really good. And then, of course, like everything, they got really terrible.
They are on my do not eat list.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But they used to be that I had a bunch of friends and we used to go down there all the time. And on it was like Tuesdays or something like that, it was like $20 all you could eat wings.
Yeah. No, I remember those.
And so my record to this day was 57 wings in one sitting. And I can tell you for a fact that I did not feel very good at all the next day. And I don't even think I could do that anymore. I used to have that kind of like, I used to understand shows like those shows where they're like, it's a 16-pound hamburger with 65 potatoes cut up into fries, and if you can eat it all, then you get it for free. Now it just seems like madness to me.
Yeah,
like why?
No, I get it.
Why? Why would you do that? But so I got my wings on. I saw my friend the UFO abduction lady there.
No.
She was eating wings with what I assumed was like her boyfriend.
The alien from the UFO that abducted her.
Maybe he was just wearing he was
just in human clothes.
The husband,
mustache.
No, I guess it was an ex that was with her when she got abducted. But yeah, she didn't really seem to recognize me, and I wasn't going to be like, "Hey, you remember me? I haven't been abducted yet." I didn't want to go over to somebody's table and just start randomly being like, "Aliens." Yeah, that's right. Outside of that, I think it's been relatively uneventful. Over the last week, there's been a whole hell of a lot out. I'm trying to think of what I actually ended up doing last weekend. I don't think I ended up really doing much of anything. I don't know. What have you been up to recently?
So this week, not so much.
Yeah.
Now I do feel like I need to bring up last week.
Okay.
Because during the Sunday streaming,
yes,
someone did ask, and it was completely ignored.
Right.
And it didn't dawn on me until very much later. Asked how my trip was to California.
Ah, okay.
Which the trip was fine. The trip was great. Went to the Griffith Observatory.
Go to Disneyland?
No, we didn't go to Disneyland. I mean, we did that last time. We might go back like next time or something like that. But
okay.
This time, we weren't there very long. We were only there for a weekend, essentially, to visit Amanda's family. But we went to the Griffith Observatory, science, and we got to watch their...
Did you just put the word science in the middle of that sentence?
Yeah, science.
Science!
We looked at some science, man.
Okay.
It was all about space. We even went to, for the first Friday of every month, which just so happened to be the Friday we were in California. The Griffith Observatory has like a kind of like a panel or almost like a online like video cast or whatever.
Okay.
They record it and then they put it up online
Did
later.
you get to see Neil deGrasse Tyson?
No. But it's called All Space Considered, and they just talk about like the past month's like space news.
Did you run up and accuse them of stealing your podcast name?
No. Well, I'd have to be. Just because I have a thing called All Rings Considered doesn't mean I didn't steal it from another show called All Things Considered.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Anyway, you saw science?
Yeah, science. They talked about Pluto. They talked about, galaxies and all sorts of crazy science stuff. And then also about the fact that they're in a huge drought in California.
Oh, in California.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the little balls that they put in all the reservoirs. Have you seen those?
Yeah,
like,
the shade balls.
Great. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that water won't evaporate because stuff is evaporating too quickly.
Yep.
But
it's actually less for that. I was reading an article that said it was less for that, more for like potential contamination from sunlight hitting the water and
that too.
Activating stuff in there. Anyway,
but
go on.
So no, that was actually really cool. It's like a 2-hour long thing. It was a lot of fun. I actually, because back in the day, back when I was a lot younger, I used to go to a lot of like science, like the Houston Science Museum, like all the fucking time. Like my mom had a membership there, and I just go there like every weekend,
like a season pass.
Yeah. Like you just walk in whenever you want, to show them your card, and you let in.
All right.
And then also like I used to be a huge science nerd, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Not so much now.
What happened? Did science kill your parents, and now you're very anti-science?
just kind of got out of high school and just kind of focused on other things.
Okay.
But it was actually a lot of fun going to the Griffith Observatory and all that stuff. Kind of getting...
That's the place where the Charlie's Angels kicked ass in Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, right?
I don't know, man. Probably. I know it was in the Rocketeer.
Okay. No, I'm pretty sure that's the same place.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that you're not intimately familiar with the cinematic masterpiece that is Charlie's Angels Full Throttle?
No.
That movie's incredible.
Is that the second one?
Yeah, the one directed
I
by...
haven't seen the second one. I've only seen the first one.
By McG. Oh, it's far superior. It's far superior to the first
Good to know.
one.
Good
in
to
every
know.
way, yeah.
I'll have to at some point watch that someday. But
you're never gonna watch it. Don't you toy with me.
Went and saw Fantastic Four in the movie theaters.
Okay, now see, I wanted to ask you about this because, like, you and Amanda both had a report of like, it wasn't that bad.
Okay, here's what I will say.
Okay.
It is a bad movie.
Okay.
It is a fucking terrible movie.
Okay.
It is a terrible Fantastic Four movie.
Right.
But it is not the worst piece of dog shit ever known to man that has ever popped on cinema and has ruined comics and movies and comic book movies forever that everyone tries to claim that it is.
Okay, so this being the internet, what I'm hearing from you when you say that is that you loved it. It was your favorite movie of the year. You're absolutely enamored with it. You've seen it 6 times in the theater.
No.
Right.
No. Because
there's only 2 options here. Is you either love it or it's actually actively destroying mankind and making us all stupider.
Yeah. There are some interesting things in the movie.
Okay.
The big problem with it is that the best part is the beginning of the movie, and then it just kind of goes downhill. And it's weird because you can actually pick out from your first viewing, you can pick out the moment where it goes downhill.
Really?
Like, because all the dialogue becomes stupid.
It's like just Vin Diesel overdubbing with his Iron Giant.
No, because it's just weird because like all the characters start describing what they're seeing. What's going on in front of them?
Ooh, that would be perfect. Brian Salisbury turned me on to this website.
Yeah,
where you could just listen to a movie.
Yeah,
it's like it's just the audio track from a movie. That would be perfect.
Yeah, well, it's just like it's just, there's this weird point where they're just like they're standing there. It's like, oh no, it's sucking us into the vortex. Oh no, kind of. And it's just like, wow, did the dialogue just get bad all of a sudden? What's going on? And everyone's acting performance got really fucking terrible. And it's just like, what's going on here? This is weird. But here's what I will say, and the reason I'm actually happy this movie exists.
Okay.
The news about the movie building up to the movie itself.
Right.
Like the behind the scenes stuff, Josh Trank being a fucking crazy lunatic that he is, almost getting in a fight with the guy that he fought to get on the movie.
Yeah.
Like almost getting into a bro chest bump, like, fuck you, man, I'm gonna kick your ass. Like, all you have to do is throw the first punch. No, you throw the first punch, and I'll, like, all this showboating, showmanship, the fact that just all the stuff surrounded, like, literally, go look on the internet, look at all the stuff that's going on about it. It's just so batshit crazy and interesting to me. Like, that's what, like, originally before this movie came out, I had actually said that what I think this is going to be, because a lot of the stuff about this movie, about the, Kate Mara, or whatever the hell her name is, that plays Sue Storm in the movie.
Rooney Mara?
Or Rooney Mara. I don't know, whatever. She was in House of Cards.
Yeah, Kate, I think it's Kate Mara.
Kate something.
Kate something.
But yeah, so she was like on set filming for like 2 weeks and was done.
Uh-huh.
And it shows.
Yeah, Kate Mara.
Yeah, Kate Mara. But yeah, so I mean, it's weird because her character's there but not there. So it's very easy to understand.
Like an invisible woman?
But not like that, just like she was removed from the plot for
okay.
most of the movie.
Damn.
But
I thought
she
it was getting real meta and shit. But
yeah, so at a point, my theory was that this wasn't an actual movie that was being made. This was going to be a mockumentary style thing about the reaction of society reacting to this crazy batshit movie.
Like found footage, like Chronicle.
Yeah, but it was basically us, the audience, were all being pranked in that we would think it was going to be this movie about the Fantastic Four that's just getting it completely and totally wrong. But what it actually is, it's a documentary about the making of this crazy movie that is and how fans and people react. Like, I actually had this theory, like, it's going to come out and it's not even going to be a movie. It's going to be like some weird documentary about the making of a movie.
Interesting.
And then
I think it would have made people even more upset.
It would have.
I think so.
But I kind of wish we had gotten that, because the shit about the behind the scenes of this movie is fucking batshit crazy and super interesting. Way more interesting than the goddamn movie.
Can I ask you a question? I keep seeing like the trailers and the footage and all this stuff, and I see Human Torch on fire,
Yeah.
and I see Rock No Dong Ben Graham,
Yeah.
and there's Sue Storm, and she's disappearing. I didn't see Mr. Fantastic stretch once during any
He
part of
stretches
that.
a few times, and there's
Okay.
even a moment where he does some like he's hiding at one point, kind of like he runs away, which is probably one of the stupidest fucking moments in the movie.
Okay.
But he like runs away from everything and like is in hiding from the government, and he actually uses his stretching ability to make himself look like a different person.
Okay.
So he can, it's like they used his powers in very interesting ways.
Okay.
But his actual like stretching was very few and far between.
Okay.
I think the biggest problem is the movie is a lot of build up to like a 5-second fight scene.
Oh, okay.
And then the payoff of that 5-second fight scene is just so much garbage that it's like, wow, even if the rest of this had been a great movie, this ending is fucking stupid.
It would have cheapened the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Even if it had not been a garbage movie.
I mean, it's a terrible movie. Everyone involved is to blame. The actors did as best as they could, but like I said, just read online about the behind the scenes and Josh Trank and the studio and all. It's all fucking fascinating.
Okay.
I actually feel like the movie's going to come out and there's going to be like no extra features on it, because if they were to put extra features on it, everyone would look bad. Like, there's no way to make anyone look good in with the behind the scenes stuff that's been going out there about this movie.
Well, I don't know. Last night before I went to go to my wings and things, I wanted actually to go see a movie. But I wanted to see Man from U.N.C.L.E., and it wasn't playing at the...
I heard that movie's really good.
I've heard it, too. Like, I talked to some of the film people that I know, and they're just like, yeah. In fact, a lot of them give it this like, yeah, it's solid. Like, it's not doing anything great, but it's just a solid movie. And I'm like, great. That's exactly the kind of movie that I want to see.
Yeah.
But all right, so you watched Fantastic Four. You saw some science.
I went to the Universal City Walk. Went,
Okay.
We ate the Hard Rock Cafe there, which is whatever. Trying to think of some of the other stuff we did. We went to a lot of. Amanda decided to show me a lot of her. A lot of the stuff that she did when she lived there. Like, she took me to her local comic shop. She took me to there's a weekly kind of almost like a flea market, but for comic stuff.
Okay.
It's not a flea market though. It's called Frankenson's Collector Show or whatever, Collector Trade Show or something. And it's like every Wednesday and Saturday of every week or whatever. And it's just a bunch of booths of people selling stuff that really, at various prices, of comics and toys and magic cards and Pokemon and anything geeky is
stuff.
there.
Yeah.
A lot of pop vinyls. But she was showing me a lot of that stuff. So that was kind of what this trip was just more like, show me the smaller stuff. Let's take it easy. Let's not go like worry about going to Disneyland and having to hit every ride or whatever.
Okay.
The worst part was the flight home, because that's fucking crazy.
You want to give us the condensed version?
We were supposed to leave California at 6:30 in the morning. We did not get on a plane until almost 3. And originally it was supposed to be a direct shot from California to Austin, but instead the new flight that we got, because we just got booked on a different flight on a completely different airline,
had
a layover, and the layover was set to leave 5 minutes before our previous flight landed.
Yeah.
Which they didn't tell us that.
Yep.
And luckily, our connecting flight was delayed 30 minutes. So when we got there, they were like, "Oh yeah, your plane's not even here yet." And we're like, "Okay, thank God," because we were worried you were going to be gone already. Yeah, didn't get home till like midnight, 2 a.m. Didn't get to bed till like almost 2-3 a.m.
So you were supposed to leave. So it took you.
We spent like 10 hours in the airport.
That just sounds like a living nightmare to me. I fucking hate the airport so much.
It was literally the worst airport experience that I've ever had, and I don't feel bad saying this. Fuck American Airlines.
Yeah,
because they were the bane of all problems.
Okay.
Apparently they had like 4 planes break down and just didn't want to tell anyone.
Oh.
And so they were constantly moving planes around and not really.
Yeah, I hate the airport. I hate it so much, and a lot of it comes from the fact, and I know that there's going to be people out there who are just going to roll their eyes when I say this, right? A lot of it comes from the fact that I am a cigarette smoker.
Yeah.
And you have to go through like 60 minutes, so an indeterminate amount of time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 45 minutes to get from outside where you can smoke to the terminal, right?
Yeah.
And here's the thing is, I don't know how to solve that problem because like I know that there are some cities where they used to have like a smoking area inside of the airport. It would just be like this terrible box that was just a bunch of grizzled. I mean, it's like the whole place was just full of smoke. But as it is, when I don't smoke for more than a couple hours, I start to get real like fidgety and unpleasant and like upset with people. And so it doesn't help that you're kind of getting treated like shit in this thing where you've paid them a fair amount of money for a service, and they kind of just then treat you like garbage, charge you for snacks, herd you around like cattle. And I still just can't get to a place where I can smoke a cigarette.
I would like to say that what I've said wasn't even like the brunt of it. That was just the quick condensed version, because there's so much stuff that was gone wrong. So much stuff. The fact that at one point to get to our connecting or to our other flight when we changed airlines, we had to leave the terminal and go back through TSA for a different airline.
Yep.
So we had to go through TSA twice.
Yeah.
Which, going through it once is enough to be fucking stupid.
It's just unpleasant. I don't know what the solution is to the airlines. All I know is that when I go to the airport, it feels like a place that is where like everybody there seems to have this attitude of like, oh well, we're the only people who do this, so you're going to give us our money and then we're just going to jerk you around however we can, because what are you going to do? Not get on an airplane? What are you going to do? Spend like 3 days in a car? Like, no. You're not going to do that. You're going to put up with this, and that it really just pisses me off, because I'd be willing to pay a little bit of extra money to get an airline that was just like, hey, have a good time, right? Instead of, but anyway.
Once I actually got on the plane that was actually coming back to Austin, I popped out my iPad and watched both Hudson Hawk and Ghostbusters on the flight home, and I was content at that point. But then it sucked because we got home and realized we didn't eat all day Monday.
Yeah. I'm not sure how you do that.
Yeah, we literally we ate dinner on Sunday and then didn't eat again until around 2 a.m. on Tuesday. Ugh. And it was just like, oh, we forgot to eat.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, I tell you what, every week, John, it seems like we always get to a place where I've got to rush through all the news. So without any further ado, let's go to the news. And this is a weird week for news. There's no like real big things this week. It's just kind of a little bit of small stuff, but a lot of it's really interesting. So let's dive right in. First off, this has nothing to do with video games, but it was in the news on this website on Game Informer, where I generally tend to go to get a big chunk of the just weekly news brought up. Apparently, Disney is finally getting their shit together and creating like a Star Wars section of Disney World in Florida.
Yeah, this has actually been rumored for a little bit because Disney just bought a huge plot of land that was right next to them.
Yeah.
That had nothing on it. Mm-hmm. And like people are like, oh, they're going to expand the park. I wonder what they're going to put there. I bet it's either going to be Star Wars or Marvel related. And then D23 happened and they were like, yeah. Star Wars.
Yeah, I think that like I said, this doesn't have any real thing to do with video games, but apparently it's going to be modeled off of one of the planets from the new movies.
Yeah.
There's going to be, what did they say? There's going to be a ride where you get to drive the Millennium Falcon, I guess.
I'm cool with that.
One will represent. Okay, so the parks will be modeled after a brand new Star Wars planet, and we'll have two main attractions. One will represent a battle between. I'm going to go with blank and blank because I don't want to give away spoilers to people who might be looking for spoilers, even though I don't know what these words means or what either one of those words represents. And another will let park goers fly the Millennium Falcon. And I'm just like, it is about goddamn time. How long has Star Wars been a cultural phenomena, and fucking Harry Potter has gotten a theme park before Star Wars got its own? I mean, even this is just a section of a theme park. In California Adventure, they have like a Cars section that's like 3 times as big as the original Disneyland park or something like that. I remember them when they were building it the last time I was out there. And I'm like, how has this not been a thing? Star Wars is this huge international phenomena that we've just all been...
Well, we've had Star Tours.
Yeah, but Star Tours was one ride. Like, you figure, you look at what the Imagineers in there are doing with shit like Finding Nemo. I mean, like, hey, man, Finding Nemo is fine, right? But
I can tell you that the big thing is that in Florida, they have land that they could expand on. They could do stuff. In California, they ain't got shit.
Yep.
They have to take something down to put something up.
Yes. Yep.
So, I mean, the fact that they were able to get a new plot of land and then go, all right, cool, let's build something on it.
No, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I wonder why it's taken this long.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it's just because Lucas was holding on to the rights so hard.
Probably.
That was probably what it would be.
That's probably it. Now that Disney owns it, they're like, all right, now we just need to find a place to expand it to.
Yeah. And guess what? I'm going to go to Disney World.
Yeah, I'll probably go.
I want to see that. There's a concept art sketch here of like fucking Admiral Akbar and C-3PO and R2-D2 walking around in this place, and I'm just like, hey, great, sounds great. I am all up on top of that.
Yeah.
So next up, speaking of Disney, there was a report last week that apparently Big Hero 6 World is going to be in Kingdom Hearts 3. I don't really know how to react to that because I really wasn't a big fan of Big Hero 6.
I love Big Hero 6.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just kind of like,
that was great.
Yeah. Big blow-up robot man, whatever.
I thought it was 10 times better than the comic that it's based on because the comic it's based on is shit.
Okay. Well, I know that there's not really all that much going on here. I know there was a this image of Sora or I don't know if that's Roxas or I don't know what the fuck is going on in Kingdom Hearts anymore on top of Baymax in his suit flying around throwing keyblades and stuff.
Baymax is awesome.
Why is Baymax awesome?
Because he's awesome. It's Baymax, man.
He's just
he's lovable. He's a big marshmallow. Plus, he puts on his battle armor and he's a badass.
All right. Hey, you obviously got a lot more out of Big Hero 6 than I did. It's just like, okay, what? All right, whatever. Anyway, this is the part of the Disney news that I've got where, Big Hero 6 is confirmed for Kingdom Hearts 3, along with Tangled. They're gonna
Kingdom Hearts 3 is just never coming out. They just keep adding new stuff to it. That game's never fucking coming out.
I think it'll come out. I think that it's one of those ones though that definitely fits in the category of like, is there any way for it to live up to the expectations of the people? Is this
going to be a Duke Nukem Forever?
I don't think it's going to be Duke Nukem Forever, but is it going to be Final Fantasy 13? Is it going to be a thing where it does okay, but that the general consensus from people is that like, well, it's just not as good as the last.
You should have just released it,
or it should have been made 5 years ago.
10 years ago.
10. I don't know when Kingdom Hearts 2 came out, so I don't know how long it's been since then.
Yeah, true. Good point.
But all right, and then speaking of Disney and Star Wars and teaming up, apparently J.J. Abrams' production company Bad Robot is teaming up with Valve to create a new mode for Team Fortress 2. It's called Pastime, and it's going to be like more of a sport thing where there's like a ball, and the person who has the ball gets like some powers, and they're able to throw it and make baskets and stuff like that. I'm actually a little surprised that Team Fortress 2 has so few game modes, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just team deathmatch. I think there's a capture the flag in there, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the cart mode, right?
Yeah.
But not a shitload of different modes, as opposed to. I mean, John and I just got finished recording the Black Ops 3 beta, right?
Yeah.
And that had like 6 different modes, right? Kill confirmed, and domination, stuff like that. So, but I don't know. This is interesting. When was the last time did anybody play Team Fortress 2 anymore? People play
Last time I played Team Fortress 2 was when we played it on a live stream and got trolled by a group that hunts down people who live stream Team Fortress 2.
Yeah, fuck
and
those
uses
guys.
a bunch of hacks.
God, fuck those guys.
And I was like, I never want to play this game again.
Yep. In fact, I think when I released the replay for that game, I even cut that part out of it just to be like, I'm not giving you the publicity that you want. We're just going to do the other part of it. All right. Well, I said it was a weird news week, and it is. So here's maybe one of the weirdest things. I don't know if you've been keeping up with this, but last week there was a report, and I left it out of the news because we had kind of bigger fish to fry, where the American Psychological Association came out with a study that said that they had linked playing video games to aggression.
I will murder you.
God damn it. You jumped my joke. Fuck you, John. Fuck you. Right now. Go outside. Knife fight to the death. No, I remember seeing the headline. I think the first headline that I saw was like linked to aggression, but not necessarily violence. There's the whole thing in there. Well, this week, apparently, there was a group of like 200 some odd other psychologists that came out and were like, this study is tainted in a lot of ways. Like, of the 7 researchers, they said that like 4 of them have like definite like anti-media proclivities. Like they were in with the. You remember when California wanted to like make it break the law to sell violent video games to minors? Said that these people. Well, so part of this. I'm sorry, folks. I mean, I read over all of this, but they started getting into like survey and study methodology that I just wasn't up on. But part of it was that 4 of the 7 researchers were linked to this to basically previous mentions of like video games making you into a violent, crazy person in like news stories and litigation and things like that. So they came out and then there was also another thing that I thought was really interesting where they said that like most of the researchers were over 50. Yeah. So there was an idea that it's like they're coming at this from an archaic point of view, essentially, that their stipulations are based in like an idea of the way that media works that is not that doesn't necessarily mesh up with the way that it actually is in the real world. So it's been a really interesting back and forth because this group released an open letter basically saying that this is kind of horse shit, that some of the methodology that they were using in their study is not really used as much anymore, and that they figured that their results are somewhat erroneous. And there was a whole like they responded to the this open letter by saying that I don't know. The whole thing is very interesting, and I think that everybody should go give it a read. Yeah. But I honestly think that at this point, God, we've been doing this for so long that I feel like there needs to be like a full on 10-year funded by the government research study that is like, do games make you violent? I want an answer to that question once and for all, because I feel like video games have just been scapegoated so much over the years.
Well, it's not just video games. Certain music types have rap music, and I mean, it's any type of media, really.
Yeah, but I feel like right now
video games just happens to be the topic of du jour.
Yeah, they're on the chopping block right now as being and again, as I've said on this show for years. I mean, I don't understand. I really do not understand how we're still doing this, right? Because it was rock and roll, it was a Satanic Panic, right? It was gangster rap, it was D&D, it was comic books, it was cable television, it was violent movies. I mean, there's been so many things over the years that have all been linked to like this, just like incredible aggression in people, and yet, as near as I can tell from, I mean, and I'm sorry that I don't actually have these statistics, but I've heard this from a number of different sources. Apparently, violent crime is down. Like it's down to the lowest it's been since like the 1950s because people have fucking cell phones and Xboxes and they don't need to go outside and stab each other anymore, right?
Yeah.
They can get their Call of Duty going on. And yet still, anytime that we have something like this, it's like people just want such an immediate scapegoat that it just it's almost like any time that there's any kind of like big tragedy or there's any kind of like aggressive thing that they're always looking for that link to go, oh yeah, they also played video games. So that obviously was what made them into
of course.
fucking murder psychos when there's zillions of us out here playing video games who are not murder psychos.
Yeah,
like,
and again, I'm not a psychologist, and I would think that if there is any link to video games and aggression, I don't think it's that video games cause aggression. They allow people to alleviate aggression. Because if anything, like if you're playing a game where your character is running around killing or murdering or whatever, you're
90%
getting
of
out,
all games,
you're getting out pent up frustrations when
Right.
you're playing that game.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. And the reason why, in my mind, again, I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't have any studies. I don't have anything to back it all up. I'm completely blowing hot air out my ass here.
hey, that's what this podcast is for, John. Come on,
I know.
let's be honest here.
I'm just putting it all out there.
Yeah.
But it's like you look at back in the 50s or whatever, when there were a lot of violent crimes. It's because people pent up their aggressions. They pent it. They held it in until they couldn't hold it anymore. They bottled it up until it exploded, and they did some horrible thing.
Yeah.
Now we have all these outlets for our aggression. Whether it be video games, whether it be going to a punk rock show and jumping in a mosh pit, or going watching a violent movie that just you see that aggression on the screen. You're like, yeah, or getting in heated debates or whatever. We don't have that pent up aggression anymore.
YouTube comments,
YouTube comments, the comments on this video down below, or the emails that you'll receive in response saying that I'm a fucking jackass and never need to talk about this shit ever again.
Oh, that's all right. I'm a what was it? Ignorant asshole. Ignorant asshole. Yeah, that's what it is.
That's what I called you. Yes.
No. Yeah. So I don't know. I hope. I'm really hopeful that we're coming to an end with this bullshit because we're not seeing it. I don't think you're seeing it as much.
Well, the reason is because we haven't seen any of the it hasn't stopped yet. Is because the next thing hasn't come along.
No, I think that we've seen. As much as I don't follow news very well.
Yeah.
But as near as I can tell, I think I'm seeing video games less when there's a large tragedy and there's a story about it. I'm seeing video games used less and less, and I think a lot of it is just because games are becoming so fucking pervasive in everybody's life that it would be stupid. Like if you're, I know that it's not a direct one-to-one between Bloodborne and Candy Crush, right? But if you're a mom, a 50-year-old mother playing Candy Crush, you're probably going to be less receptive to the idea that playing a video game, that just that statement, playing a video game, is going to make you into a crazy person than you would be if you were, just watching telenovelas or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I highly encourage everybody to go look at this stuff, read into it, and then get into the comments and tell me exactly how I'm wrong. I know that I'm overlooking a lot of this stuff, and there's a lot of this stuff that I just I don't quite understand some of the survey methodology and some of the stuff that they're talking about.
Yeah.
But I find it interesting. So let's see. Next up, speaking of getting out your aggression in the best possible ways. No, that's not a good segue. Speaking of overly aggressive people who scream. Nope. Speaking of terrible things that happen on the internet. Okay, that'll do. So you remember when Gearbox and 3D Realms got into it over Duke Nukem?
Yes.
Because 3D Realms got this other company, I think they were called Interceptor.
Yeah.
To make they just had a still image of a game, right? It was bubblegum and it was like Duke Nukem brand gum or something like that. And 3D Realms had kind of maintained that they still had the license, they still had rights to be able to use Duke Nukem in some way or another. That they had hired this other company to make this game, and that game I believe turned into that what was it called, Bombshell?
Yeah,
with the
I think you're
cyber
right.
arm and the Mohawk lady, right?
Yeah, I think you're right on that.
Well, they went to court over this. It was called Duke Nukem Mass Destruction or Duke Nukem Survivor. They were getting ready to go to court. It looks like they've settled at this point. The details are pretty much sparse, but.
The results
are that Duke Nukem is purely in the hands of the benevolent, well-meaning, and ever-popular Randy Pitchford and Gearbox Software. So 3D Realms basically retains no rights to do any goddamn thing with Duke Nukem, and good, because they haven't done anything with Duke Nukem that hasn't been terrible for years. I really don't understand how 3D Realms is even still a company. I don't understand how THQ is gone, and yet 3D Realms is somehow still an organization. I mean, they got like 5 people, and they put all the money from Duke Nukem in the bank, and they're just paying people out of the residuals or
Is that what
interest
they're
or something.
doing?
I don't know. I don't know how they're still a thing. They haven't put out a game since what? Prey? I mean, what was the last? Let's see.
Didn't they get some residuals from Duke Nukem Forever? I know that was Gearbox or whatever, but didn't they get some part of that?
Sold it.
Oh, okay. Maybe they sold it.
I don't know. Let's see. As a developer, last game 1996 Star Gunner. As a publisher / producer, last game 1996 Death Rally. Yeah, I don't as 3D Realms. Okay, I'm sorry. This is as 3D Realms. Is developer Duke Nukem Forever, 2011. Duke Nukem Manhattan Project, the Xbox Live Arcade port in 2010. Duke Nukem 3D Xbox Live Arcade port 2008. As a publisher, yeah, they are not. I guess they published that Rise of the Triad by Interceptor. Duke Nukem, Shadow Warrior, Classic Redo, Shadow Warrior on the iOS. Yeah, they haven't really done anything. I don't understand how they're still.
I think they sold off Shadow Warrior to Devolver, didn't they?
Yeah, to whoever's making it. Flying Hog, I believe,
Flying Hog
is in Devolver's publishing.
Yeah.
So anyway, hey, great. I can't wait for the day. I don't know. Do you think? I mean, this is something that I've been asking for a few years now. Do you think that Gearbox can make a good? Do you think that we live in a time when a new Duke Nukem game could be a thing?
No.
No. You think that just the time of Duke is past?
Unless
we're still making Sonic games, man. I mean,
yeah, but how many of them have been good?
Don't ask me. If you ask the fans of Sonic, they'll tell you like 4 out of the last 6 were really good, but I don't know because I don't play Sonic
My point
games
is
all that
that
much.
I don't think the reason I say no is because I don't think anyone has the idea of how to do it. I think it can be done. I think that you have to have the right idea. I don't have the idea of how to make it work, but I think it can be done. But there's a fine line of being able to make it work and changing just enough that it's interesting, but not changing. Like I feel like the last time Duke Nukem could have worked was when they were making the Serious Sam games, because that's all they are. The Sam games are kind of just Duke Nukem.
Actually, when you mentioned it, I think that I think that Flying Hog did so well with Shadow Warrior. I could see them doing something like that. That's like it's a redo. It's adding some new gameplay elements, right?
Yeah.
It's still tongue in cheek, like but as both you and I know, Shadow Warrior was weird because you start out and you're just like, oh, they're just ripping this shit off, and then like by the end of the game you're like, why do I care about Lo Wang? What happened here? Why am I caring about what happens to the story of the character named Lo Wang? That's fucking ridiculous. But I did.
Coming back for more.
Hey, man.
We're getting Shadow Warrior 2.
Did you play Shadow Warrior all the way to the end?
I did. Yes.
Okay.
That was good.
I really enjoyed that game.
Yeah, it was a good game.
I really enjoyed it. So I think that somebody could do that if Duke Nukem took itself seriously enough.
Yeah.
It could probably work as a game. I mean, all you have to do is if you just create a first-person shooter. Yeah, I think it could totally work. I don't know. Maybe
there's a part of me that wants to say yes, it could work, but there's another part of me that would be like, no, it's not. It could, but it won't.
Yeah, I just think that whoever, if they do make another Duke Nukem game, they have to remember that you can't just bank on the name of Duke Nukem. It has no cachet with any of us anymore.
Not after Forever.
Yeah. It's weird though, because I said this when Forever came out. If Forever had come out when it was supposed to have come out, it would have been phenomenal.
I agree with you. I agree with you completely.
Like it's funny how when we were playing, we did for our Patreon, we did Conker's Bad Fur Day, right? And Brian and I just didn't really enjoy it all that much because it felt very dated and blah, 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 blah.
Because it came out a long time ago?
Well, yes. But, if Duke Nukem Forever had just come out when it was supposed to have come out, I think it would have been great. I think it would have been fine. And I don't understand, because didn't Gearbox buy Duke Nukem Forever and then just like finish it in like 6 months or something?
Yeah.
Like what the fuck was 3D Realms doing for a decade with that game? Like they obviously had assets and shit like that, but I've seen companies, not even like Ubisoft where it's 6 companies working at the same time, but like indie Kickstarter companies put together a game from zero to a full-on game in like a year. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, but speaking of lawsuits, here's another interesting one. You remember that one with the state of Washington where they were going after that Kickstarter that didn't fulfill its backing rewards to people?
Vaguely.
Okay, so
Which one?
this one for the Asylum playing cards.
Okay.
Where basically they did their Kickstarter, they didn't send out the rewards, and in Washington, I believe a group of people. Let me see if I can figure out how many it was. 31 backers sued them to basically say, "Hey, you said you were going to give us rewards. You have to give us these rewards." And this week, it was announced that they won their settlement.
Oh, nice.
So each one of those people is getting $668 in restitution. But I think that I love talking about Kickstarter and crowdfunding on this show because this brings up a really interesting point, right? Of how we talked last week. Aaron and I talked about how the Red Hood Diaries, that company, Grin, declared bankruptcy, right?
Yeah.
They put out the game, they didn't fulfill their backer rewards, declared bankruptcy in the meantime. And it makes you wonder how on the hook are the people that do these Kickstarters for those Kickstarter rewards?
Yeah.
If it's a choice between spending all of your money getting the Kickstarter rewards and actually making the product that you want to make, because it's a big juggling act.
Yeah, no, and here, I'll even say I've backed 1, 2, 3, 4 games, 3 or 4 games on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I could be wrong on that number off the top of my head. One of which is not done yet, has not been completed, and I only backed it at a level where I'll get the game and maybe like an early access to the game when the beta comes out. Which I did that just so that if they allow us to do videos for it, we can do it for Super Awesome Video Game Show.
Right.
It's a game that I thought would be really fun to play. Which I'm not going to say what it is on air. But the other games have all come out in full. Not gotten the rest of my rewards.
Really?
Almost every one of them. The only Kickstarter that I have ever gotten 100% of the rewards that I had been promised, strangely enough, is for the motherfucking Ouya. That is the only Kickstarter I've ever done where I've gotten everything that I was supposed to get from that Kickstarter.
Okay.
Double Fine Adventure, which became Broken Age.
Right.
Still waiting on that Blu-ray.
Okay.
Which they tell us it should be getting at some point.
It's weird because I feel like the backer rewards part has become so critical to the campaigns, to the amount of money that people are giving, that you can't I understand, I can see both sides of this argument, right? Is that I understand that I've read reports from Kickstarter people who are just we spent half our time just trying to give people these rewards, right?
Yeah, they go because people go too far with it. People think too much about it.
But then if you don't give people rewards, you might not be able to jump enough money because you need those whales who are coming in with the big, the big donations.
Well, and that's why you had to come up with rewards that make it worth, but don't cost you a lot of money on the back end.
Sure.
You got to come up with your ways to do that, of being oh, here's this, we're making a game. Want your name in the game? Pay us $150 and we'll put your name on a gravestone.
Right.
Or, hey, you want to get early access to the beta? Then pay us, instead of paying $50 for the game, pay us $75 and we'll give you early access.
Right.
You got to do stuff that you can give out and it's not going to cost you physical money to produce, because what people don't realize is every time they do a T-shirt or every time they promise a art book or a DVD or something, that's where it ends up killing them, because that they use up all their money for the Kickstarter and then they don't have any money for the rest of the stuff.
Right. Yeah. And it's very odd. So I don't know. I've asked the question a bunch of times, and people keep chiming in, but I think that's something that changes as time goes on, and we see Kickstarter evolve into different types of things.
I'm also interested. I don't know if it's one of the news items you've got up, or if it's something you talked about last week. The thing that the new
we're getting
we'll
to
talk
that.
about that later. Okay, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So it's at the end. I've got a quadrant.
Okay, we'll get to that then. I won't talk about.
I got 4 crowdfunding stories. The next one is that apparently Star Citizen is giving people refunds.
Wow.
Apparently it's not something that they're advertising.
Yeah.
They're not being really upfront about it. But if people come to them with like legit, like, hey, I want this game, right? And it should have been out by now, and you haven't given it to me, and I've given you $900, they'll give you back your money, and they'll close out your account.
Wow.
Which is interesting because I think it leads to what we might see as one of the first examples, potentially. I don't think this is going to happen, in all honesty, but it's got the potential to defund a crowdfunded project, right? Like if this type of activity snowballed to the point where you had people, in general that were demanding refunds in bigger and bigger numbers. I mean, in the interview, this is on Polygon. In the interview, Chris Roberts said, we're not obliged to do this, right? We're doing it because we don't want people that are unhappy to be part of this project. We want you to be in and understanding and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So if you want to cash out and get rid of it, we want to be able to give your money back. But it's really interesting to me because they've raised a shitload of money. Like,
yeah, not just in Kickstarter, but just in general.
We talked before about Kickstarter rewards and about I feel like Star Citizen. I'm worried about Star Citizen because I almost think that
I think it got too big.
If Star Citizen isn't everything they said it was going to be, if it comes out and it's not any good, it could do some serious damage to the whole crowdfunding thing as a whole. Because they've given so much money. I mean, they've given the company a AAA budget, essentially, right?
Yeah. The problem is that they promised something, and then they said, oh, but if we get this extra money, we also promise all these other things.
Right.
And then they made all the extra money, and it doesn't seem like they have the manpower or the ability to implement those other things on top of the things that they originally promised.
Yeah.
Regardless of how much money they have.
I wonder, though, if this sets a precedent of saying, do you think that people should be able to basically remove their money from a crowdfunded project if that project shows that it's going downhill and fucking up? Should you be able to get your money back and say,
well,
hey,
that wouldn't be unprecedented. This is not. I mean, this is the first time we've seen it on a major scale for a video game. But I mean, I've witnessed other Kickstarters where basically the crowdfunders had to give all of the money back. What was it? Or something like that. I vaguely remember something that was done by the Yogcast guys. They were trying to make their own game. And completely failed on every level and ended up just giving everybody their money back, if I remember correctly.
I think that went differently than that.
Oh, it may have gone differently or whatever.
I thought that. Oh God, it was so long ago. Or well, it's not so long ago.
I could be entirely wrong. Someone in the comments will be like, "No, John, you're wrong. Here's what actually happened."
I thought that it was that they basically just gave them what they finished, and were like, "We're out of money."
Yeah.
Because that totally happened.
That could have happened. But I do remember there was one smaller scale game or comic or movie or something that was done on Kickstarter where Kickstarter stepped in and went, no, you've got to give them their money back. You have you have nothing to show for the money that was given to you. You haven't provided any of the rewards that you promised. You have done nothing.
Yeah.
I think it was a case of Kickstarter went, show us what you've done so far for this amount of money. Mm-hmm. And then they said, we don't have anything. And they said, give the money back, everybody. Yep. Now, I also have been part of Kickstarters where people have been upset about the time it takes for the product to get done. Right. And people have asked for refunds. And some creators may even go, all right, fine. You're upset. I get it. I'm sorry. You want your money back here. Take it.
Yeah.
And I'll because I can't do it through Kickstarter, I have to do it through a PayPal or whatever, completely outside of the outside of Kickstarter.
Right.
I've seen some creators do that on books and stuff that have through Kickstarter. So
okay. Well, speaking of taking money out of a Kickstarter, this is what you were talking about. Is this week Brian Fargo, Tim Schafer, and Fergus Urquhart started have announced that they're starting up their own crowdfunding platform. What's it called? Fig, right?
Fig, yes.
And this is interesting. This is really bizarre because one of the major things that it looks like they're doing here is that if you are so if you're just a normal schmo with $20 to spend, right, it's going to be exactly like Kickstarter, right? I want the game, and you're going to get an art book, right?
Yeah.
But if you are an actual, and how did they? If you are an accredited investor, you can put money into this, and actually, it's more like buying stock in the game, where you can actually get money back out of the project for your investment.
Yes.
Which I think is really interesting and is good because it means that, I I think that we've seen just in these previous stories that we're looking at that there's a lot of difficulty in rallying people around and rallying just people like you and me, right?
Yeah.
And the listeners of Rage Slide around giving me money for a game which may or may not ever come out, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you're trying to get $1 million from an investor and you could tell them that you're going to get X return on your investment, that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
That allows you to basically kind of act like a bigger video game company without actually having to be hooked up to like an Activision or an EA or something like that. And I think that that's great because
And I really like this what they're planning here, because one of the things they said is that they're not just going to they're not going to do a thing where it's like everybody who submits and can create one and anyone can create one. It's going to be very much like you have to submit a project to them.
Yeah.
They have to approve it, and then it's going to go up. And it's also going to be one of those things where they're not going to just approve everything. It's going to be very like right now they're only doing one game to start off with.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually once that's done, they may do another game, and then they might do 2 games.
it's like the exact opposite of Steam. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they're gonna
burn Steam.
Though their website front end looks an awful lot like Steam, which
Does
is
it?
crazy.
Okay.
But yeah. So I mean, and they did say that it is possible that somewhere down the line they may be able to do like non-credited investors with where you could get some money back.
Where you can
They're looking into the stuff behind it on what. They're saying it may not happen with every game, it may not happen with any game, but it is something that they are looking at the possibility of.
Okay. Well, I think that's great. I mean, I think that I think curating your crowdfunded projects is great. I mean, it means that people have to have a certain level of like because last week, I mean, I don't know if you followed it, but 2 weeks ago, we had the BioWare guys that put up their Kickstarter for their Mooncrest or whatever it was.
Yeah.
With the women who went into the comic book store or whatever. And then last week, they pulled their Kickstarter down because they were like, well, we didn't actually... They realized we didn't show anybody anything. We just said a bunch of things and then showed you some artwork and wanted $30K or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So I like the idea of, especially people I like the idea of this being run by people like Tim Schafer, who understand about crowdfunding. I mean, Double Fine is what the space station thing failed, essentially, right?
Yeah.
DS, what was it?
DF9.
DF9.
Space-based DF9.
Space-based DF9, yeah. So I love this as an idea. Like, I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah. I mean, and Tim Schafer isn't, like, running this. He's just a judge or whatever. He's one of the board of people who kind of evaluates the games. There's basically a group of guys who are kind of the people who kind of are who decide like what games they're going to let do this. They're making sure that a project meets certain requirements before it can be allowed to be funded or go up on their site. Like that's what they're there to basically make sure that there are certain qualities. And it's also the guy who did Wasteland 2. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Fergus Urquhart?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's interesting. Like I think it's very interesting, and I'm curious on how that's going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I think it's a great idea. And actually, I haven't even looked at this first project that they're doing, but it's
it's a game Otherwise.
Space. Yeah.
And it's being developed by a studio that's run by the guy that plays Hero on Heroes.
Oh, okay.
Like he owns the company, or it's a game that he founded.
Oh, okay. He's the president, Masioka.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks pretty cool. So, yeah. All right, next up, just an FYI to everybody, the Street Fighter V beta is trying to get back into its thing. They're trying to launch it in a limited by region, starting with Europe, and then if that works, coming to the United States. Apparently, they're still having some trouble with overloading their servers.
You don't say.
Yeah, I do say. Which... Speaking of refunds, hey, that would be one. That would be an interesting thing, right?
Yeah.
Is if
they allowed people to refund their pre-orders because of the failure of the beta.
Yeah, if PlayStation had the same kind of refund policy that Steam had, where you could pre-order a thing, and then like if you didn't get access to the thing that they promised you for a pre-order, you'd be like, well, then give me my goddamn money back. I mean, that's why I did the pre-order. I mean, I'll tell you right now, Black Ops 3. We played that today. That was a get into the beta when you pre-order the game. flawless, no problem.
Yeah.
And that's fucking Call of Duty. That's like
Yeah.
one of the most popular games out there.
Agreed.
So, Capcom, get your shit together, all right? I've been giving you a lot of slack recently. We talked all about how I don't think the betas you should give betas a little bit of slack for having problems, right?
Yeah.
The betas are betas, and sometimes they have problems.
Yeah.
But seriously, like, don't start none if you ain't got none, Capcom. Next up, I think this is a really interesting story, John.
All right.
There's no good segue. Speaking of shit and garbage,
All
and
right.
people acting horribly, EverQuest 2 is creating a punishment server.
Really?
Yes. It's called a prison server. It's going to be known as Drunder. And this is it is explained in this forum post. Holly Longdale explains, later this week, we plan to release a server which we are calling Drunder, which is a prison server. What does this mean exactly? Ultimately, players who are caught breaking our rules and disrupting EQ2 live server gameplay will be flagged for this server and no others ever. Characters in these accounts will be copied to Drunder and can never leave or transfer to another server.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, apparently people...
So they can't even like create a new character on
No.
another? Oh, wow.
Like, their account will be tied to this prison server, and they can't create characters anywhere else outside of this.
Huh.
Apparently, you can also... I was reading a little bit more about it. You can also request, if you want to play on that server. You know what I want to do?
You want to request to play on that server?
I want to give this shit like 6 to 8 months and then go to this Mad Max server and just see like what I mean. Like, what I wonder is, are they still going to try to enforce anything on this prison server, or is it just going to be like the fucking Thunderdome, right, where the prisoners are, it's Arkham Asylum, where it's just people cheating and spamming and just being dicks all day every day, because why not? We're on the prison server.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think that like a month ago or 2 months ago, there was a story in Guild Wars 2 where the admins took control of somebody and basically publicly shamed them?
Yeah.
And I actually read a lot of responses to it talking about how, like, this does not set a good precedent.
No,
Because
it doesn't.
Do you think that this sets a good precedent?
Yeah.
I mean, just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, I don't know if it should be a like permanent ban or from all other servers, but I mean, I think it should be like a temporary, like, it should be used like prison. Like, okay, you're cheating or you're doing something, like, it would have to. I don't know what constitutes as you getting, like, I would like to know what constitutes as this being placed on you.
Yeah, I mean, so I understand breaking the rules, right? Maybe using cheats or
Hacks
whatever,
or whatever.
Fine. But it's this one that's disrupting EQ2 live server gameplay. What does that mean? You know?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Does that mean if you're on a PvP server and you just, because I had a friend a long time ago used to play EverQuest, played on a PvP server, and their guild like ran that server. Like, if they didn't want you to do something, you wouldn't do it, because they would follow you around 24 hours a day and kill you to keep you out of the areas that they had claimed for farming and things like that. It's to the point where some of the people that were trying to get a foothold on that server would actually go pay the admins to come babysit them while they played EverQuest and just kill this guild off of them, keep this guild off of them while they did that. Is that considered to be disrupting server behavior? I mean, you know, like, what is harassment of a person? I mean, that's really the question.
It's and I think it would be interesting if it's like, okay, guess what? For the next 6 months, your character's getting transferred to this server. This character is permanently locked to this server, and for the next 6 months, you can only access this server.
Yeah.
Now, after 6 months, or after X amount of time, we'll remove the ban. This character will never leave this server. But if you want to create, after that, if you want to create more characters, you can.
Yeah.
Like, almost treat it like real prison, like, the crime, the punishment, equals the crime or whatever.
Right. It's also an experiment, which she makes clear in her post that they're going to try this out, and apparently, if it just becomes a horrible nightmare shit show, then they'll just revert, right, or do whatever.
Yeah.
But I do think it's interesting. Like, I honestly think that as time goes on, I really like the idea of in a lot of different games. And it could even be an opt-in thing, of the opt-in, like we were talking about it in the Black Ops 3 beta. Like, I'm shitty at Call of Duty.
Yes.
Let me play on servers with people who are shitty. Let us all just have a shitty time where we don't have to worry about 360 no-scope headshots from all the way on the other side of the map. Let it be me and a bunch of 40-year-old men just like, oh, this is so fun, bah, 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 right? Instead of just like, bam, 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 and you're dead, right? Or Halo servers with people who've been playing Halo every week for the entirety of their life. Put those people up against people who they want to fight
Yeah.
instead of my dumbass, right? The same is true of here. Is like, hey, you know what? I think it's a great idea to say if you want to act like a shitty, or not even shitty, if you want to act the way that you want to act, right? Whether that's aggressive or whatever, I say let those people go on a server where they can all act exactly the same way they want to act, right? There's no reason why you can't set up server architecture to say that, like, if you want to be hardcore, you do it over here, and if you don't want to be hardcore, let's set up the casual servers over here.
Most MMOs have that. Like, they'll actually say, "Oh, this like this server
RP,
is
PvE, PvP.
an RP server.
Yeah.
This server is like a PvE. You know, like you just said, like RP, PvE, PvP.
Yeah.
You know, this server is it's like RP, but like for serious RP, like you never go out of character,
Right.
Kind of server. You know, I've seen those.
I guess what I'm saying is that I like this idea, and if it pans out, I hope that it starts to filter out into other games,
Okay.
right? Other types of games. All right. Next up, next month, in addition to all of the other wonderful things like the Phantom Pain and Mad Max that are coming out, the new Destiny expansion, Taken King, is coming out.
Yeah.
Apparently, the expansion is making some pretty severe changes to the way that the upper tier late game leveling system works.
Yes.
So that you don't have to do this equipment based grinding in the game.
Yes.
And apparently that change is actually going to filter down into people even who haven't purchased that. And also Nolan Northbot is going to be in there as well.
Replacing Peter Dinklage bot.
Mm-hmm.
Dinklebot.
Yep. So apparently this actually kind of makes me excited about going back and trying Destiny, because I got to that point, to the point where you're in the end game and you have to do this horrible grinding to get the equipment to be able to level up, right?
Yeah.
If they change that, I might be interested in going back and giving it another shot, because that just got to the point where it just felt very unrewarding to play the game. You know, where you're just doing the same missions over and over again, and just like, I don't know, maybe I'll get something, maybe I won't. Whereas if you can kind of be assured that you're going to be able to work forward, regardless if the work that you put in is not going to be wasted, I guess is
I
what
get you.
What I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the reason it turned me off, because that's how MMOs work.
Yep. So yeah, all that's going to be added with the 2.0 update when the Taken King launches on, I believe it's the 15th of next month. Hey, guess what? You remember that trailer for Gears of War that used the slow burn Mad World?
Yeah.
AKA my least favorite trailer of all time.
Yeah.
Because it started this whole thing of using slow pop ballads over like violence and stuff. Well, Gears of War Ultimate's coming out, and so they decided to remake that trailer with assets from the new game. And guess what? It's super pretty.
Yeah. Looks really good.
Yeah. Still fucking hate that when they do that shit.
I like the song. I mean, the song was made for Donnie Darko.
Yep.
I like that's what I find hilarious about it, is I was like, wait, they used the song from Donnie Darko, which is like the director actually asked the guy who made the song to make this song.
Yeah.
So like it was specifically made for the movie Donnie Darko, and then everyone associates it with Gears of War now.
Yeah. I'm as you're the okay. If I hear that fucking "Everybody Wants to Rule the World" rendition one more goddamn time in a video game trailer,
okay.
I swear to God, I'm going to put my hand through my monitor, and then I'm going to buy another monitor and put my hand through that as well.
All right. You're not going to do that.
I'm not going to do that. Anyway, yeah, if you're a big fan of that, go watch it.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I mean, yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's very obvious a play at nostalgia.
Yep. Speaking of Microsoft, apparently Windows 10 is getting full 1080p 60 frames per second streaming.
Yeah.
In its whole like streaming from the Xbox One to the PC. You haven't been able to get it to work yet, right?
So I think I figured something out.
Okay.
I still haven't been able to get it to work, but I think you actually have to be playing a game on your Xbox and pause it, and then can walk to your computer and then do the streaming thing and let it take over to your computer.
Okay.
Like if you're not running a game, you can't do it.
Okay.
Like you can't like load up something that then loads up your Xbox dashboard, because apparently some games don't support it.
Okay.
And like right now I think it's literally like Microsoft Studio games that are only ones that work.
Okay.
I haven't tried it out yet because I haven't had a chance to. But yeah, I upgraded to Windows 10 last week as well, and that's been the big thing I've been trying to figure out how to work, and it took me a while to figure that part out.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna let you keep doing that because I'm not really interested in. I may take the Windows 10 upgrade pill, but probably not for at least 3 or 4 months. Let them work out some of their shit. But
I haven't had any issues with it. I've actually been pretty okay with the whole thing so far.
Okay, great. All right. Next up, CD Projekt Red has actually put out a couple of updates for The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
The first one is mods support is now in Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt. And apparently they're using the Nexus Mods website, which I don't know if you've ever used,
Nope.
but I was looking for DS Fix for Dark Souls 1 the other day, and apparently you can't even get it off of the person's website who made it at this point, but I was able to get it off of Nexus Mods. I also remember, I'm sorry that I didn't bring it up, but that there were some people that were a little bit unhappy with the way that the mod support had been added in. I haven't really tried
there were
it yet,
apparently
but
people who were upset.
do you know why? Did you read why?
No,
okay.
No, I just remember that. I think it was they were upset because they were apparently promised something different
Okay.
than what they got,
Okay.
and that's why they were upset, because it wasn't what was promised. Or
Okay.
wasn't exactly the way it was alluded to when it was promised.
I mean, that sounds very, very much like something that would happen on the internet.
Yeah.
But the other thing that happened is that The Witcher 3, apparently with this update, is also added back into their New Game Plus mode. And that is the end of the free DLC for The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
So all the stuff that's come out has come out. If you're looking for a reason to get back into The Witcher 3, looks like it's a good time.
Yeah.
So
They fixed all the crashing issues?
I think so.
Okay.
On what platform?
I've heard all platforms have had issues where the game just crashes.
I don't think I had that many problems, but it's also seems like I played Witcher 3 about 6 years ago, so
Okay.
I don't really remember all
Yeah,
that much.
I don't know. Like, I haven't really gotten the chance to play it all that much, and I just remembered a lot of people like complaining. Like, it was like, oh yeah, every platform has just issues.
I have no idea why this is happening, but apparently Splatoon is having a thing where you can declare your allegiance to either Autobots or Decepticons in the next Splatoon Splatfest, right?
Yeah.
During PAX, apparently you could declare your allegiance to either be Autobots or Decepticons, and then the winning team will earn Super Sea Snails that could be used to upgrade your gear.
Also, you also get the T-shirt for your character that has the logo.
Yeah, it seems like it seems so arbitrary, John.
Yeah.
Splatoon has nothing to do with Transformers.
Yeah.
Transformers has nothing to do with Splatoon. I mean, I guess if they had made it so there was like new gear that instead of turning into a squid, you transform like a car or something like that, or like a robot squid or something. I mean,
Or maybe like your gun transforms into a robot and punches someone.
yeah, I don't know. It just seems interesting. I think that
I think it's just promotion. I think they're testing the waters with
Yep.
promotional stuff, and that if this goes over as well as they think it will, they'll probably team up with some other toy company and do some other kind of, like, it'll probably be G.I. Joe and Cobra next, and then after that it's, because that's Hasbro,
Yeah.
and then it'll be some other faction-based cartoon.
Okay. I don't know. It just struck me as kind of odd. Like, we're coming to the end of the news, and there was a trio of stories that I had that were kind of just like,
I think it's kind of cool. Like I said, I don't get to play Splatoon all that much, so, or ever.
Also, last week we talked about Twitch Plays Dark Souls.
Yes.
Twitch Plays Dark Souls is now making actual progress because they have modded the shit out of Dark Souls.
Yes, they have.
To basically make it so that now every few seconds the game stops, takes a poll from everybody about what they want to do, and then unpauses, and then that happens inside of the game. Which they have beaten the Asylum Demon, and they're trying to get through the Undead Burg now. So after, I think it was like 4 or 5 days where I would load up Twitch Plays Dark Souls and just be like, yep, still at the Asylum Demon.
Yeah, well, it's like they couldn't even get to the Asylum Demon when I was watching it. Like, they were just wandering around that opening area with a broken mace. Or
Yep.
a broken sword. Like, all their weapons were completely 100% damaged and useless. And
Yep. No, they finally got to the point where they could attack the Asylum Demon, where they were at the bonfire where you just walk up and you can fight the
Yeah.
Asylum Demon, but all they had left was the hilt.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't basically get through the opening area without banging whatever their starting weapon was on the wall so hard that they would eventually just bust it.
Yeah.
But it does mean that they're making progress. I find it really interesting, though. Obviously, whoever's running this,
Yeah.
I wonder if they've been VAC banned. Out of curiosity, because you can't pause Dark Souls.
Yeah.
There is no pausing Dark Souls
Yeah.
in Dark Souls. There is no way to play Dark Souls with a pause on, and being able to do that would, like, if somebody tried to invade their game, I don't even know what that would look like from the
Yeah.
outside, right? Because you can't pause. But I do kind of dig the idea of turning Dark Souls into a turn-based game.
Yeah,
Like,
it's weird.
it's definitely odd.
But they're making progress.
They are making progress, so
And maybe, just maybe, they may finish the game.
maybe. I mean, I think that once you come to this level, right?
Yeah.
They totally could finish the game at this point because you don't have to, like, one of the big challenges of Dark Souls is reacting of reflex.
Yeah.
And they don't have to. They've got better reflexes than anybody who has ever played Dark Souls has because the game literally stops to let them decide where they want to dash or jump or hit or whatever.
True.
So, and lastly, a little bit of a sad story. Apparently, Guillermo del Toro has said that he's done making video games. I think that this came out kind of right on the tail end of last week's news, so it's a little bit of an old story. But apparently, he said, I joined THQ, and THQ goes broke. I joined Kojima, and Kojima leaves Konami. I've decided in order not to destroy anyone else's life, I have decided I will never again get involved in video games. Otherwise, I'll join someone and his house will explode or something. Guillermo here is maybe ascribing a little bit more power to himself as
I think a lot of that was a little bit tongue-in-cheek as well.
Yeah.
I think he's basically like, you know what? I get it. Every time I've tried to make a video game, something has gone horribly wrong. I'm just going to focus on my movies.
Yeah.
Maybe I might revisit this someday, but I doubt it. But
yeah.
it's just bad stuff. And I think his response was half tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah. But that kind of sucks. Well, I don't know if this came after the news that he said he was still wanted to do something with Kojima.
Well,
Didn't
it came after the news. He said he was still doing something with Kojima, I thought.
Yeah.
Like, he was like, yeah, it's just not going to be at Konami, and we can't really talk about it, but I've talked to Kojima a little bit, and we're still going to work on something.
Yeah, I don't know. Odd. But in any case, that's all the news that we have, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a break.
All right.
When we come back, we have the questions from the people to do the answering here on the Rage Talk Podcast. So stay tuned, and we'll be back in a moment. And we're back. Whew. That's all I've got left, John. So to those people who can't see us because we're doing an audio show, I've recently tried to stop using the studio lights that I have here in the studio to light the actual room. So it's very much like it's kind of an intimate after dinner. You need a glass of wine. I got a little.
Well, now
lamp
I'm
on.
uncomfortable.
Not that kind of intimate. It doesn't always have to be the pants off, dance off, John. Come on.
Let me put my pants back on.
Yep. All right. Well, folks, mail@rageselect.com is the email address to get your questions answered. Send them in. Send them in all the time. We just barely had enough to reach our quota this week. So, hey, send in your questions. When you think of them, just pop out that smartphone of yours and be like, I'm at Taco Bell. What's the best sauce at Taco Bell? And then we will answer. And I don't they
cheese sauce.
It stopped making that Baja sauce, and that was my jam for a while. But all right, our first question. Excuse me.
Jeff, why are you dying?
No, pay no attention. First question comes in from Bill, who says, howdy, y'all. Hope y'all are doing well this fine day, unless the apocalypse has fallen upon us. By the time this is read, then never mind. Anyway, a couple weeks ago, y'all were talking about Star Citizen and how it may not live up to the promises proclaimed and how they should put out a simpler game to keep attention up. Boy, I repeat
Topical.
myself. Yeah. This got me thinking about the fact that the game Roberts is now peddling looks nothing like the initial Kickstarter promised. And I honestly started getting mad about this. When I first heard about Star Citizen, I was very, very excited. A new single-player space combat sim by one of the biggest, if not the biggest, name in the genre. Sign me up and all that. However, it has now grown as some kind of MMO space trade / combat abomination, which frankly is not what I signed up for. I gave money for the initial premise, That is exactly what I wanted, not another Space Trader. I understand Squadron 42 is still in development, but feels like an afterthought at this point. My question is, should Kickstarter games be required to stick to their initial game idea, or should a bigger budget than expected allow developers to expand the game into something new? Let's see. Less than normally drunken idiot, Bill. Which I thought, I kind of looked at that and I was going to ask this question if we actually got into that when we were talking about Star Citizen, but I think it's a valid question for the whole Kickstarter thing, right? Is, if you get this huge influx of money and you suddenly are expanding into something that's outside of the reach of what you were originally pitching, is that legit? Is that square? Because people didn't donate money for something this big.
It's kind of a tricky thing because, on one hand you have that what you're saying, like they added, because we talked about it earlier. They added so many things, many extra features and stuff that it became a completely different game.
Yeah.
And it doesn't resemble the original game that came out. However, if you also look at just game development in general, sometimes when a developer starts working on a game and starts developing a game, they run into a roadblock.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, wow, this game isn't good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what we originally pitched is fucking terrible. We have to completely redo this game or start from scratch or retool it to make it serviceable.
Right.
And the game that comes out is nothing like the original pitch for the game that they'd come up with.
Or even if it's slightly modified.
Yeah.
Even if it's somewhat different than what you originally
that
thought.
happens all the time.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
So, on one hand, you have to go, well, it's part of the process. But at the same time, in this case, it's...
You were giving money to them for a thing, and
Yeah.
now you're getting something different,
Yeah, like I said, in this case, it's different because it was... They said, here's the base, and if we get X amount of dollars, we'll add all these other things. And then by adding all those other things, they completely changed it.
Yeah.
Which... on one level says, well, they actually got money to add all those other things, so all those other things have to be part of it now.
Right.
But so that the game may not be what you specifically originally pitched, but apparently the majority decided that it needed to be something else. There needed to be more than what you wanted.
Right.
But at the same time, like I said, if you look at in just normal development and the development of a game,
sure.
That's normal.
Here, I think a perfect counterexample to what he's saying was the Neil Stephenson game.
Yeah.
What was supposed to be like a sword fighting, like a combat type of game, right? Where they had the Kickstarter video with all the sword fighting and stuff going on in the background, right? And they did the development on it, and then they were like, what we came up, we did what we said we were going to do. This game is no good. That like we did what we thought that we needed to do, and we put together the game that we said that we were going to make, and at the end of the day, what we came up with was not fun, was not a fun game. So you got to kind of wonder, and then that Kickstarter basically just like they spent their money doing that, they ran out of money, what they were left with wasn't any good, and then boom, you got a failed Kickstarter in your hands. At least that's what I seem to remember that being the story of
vaguely.
That one. So yeah, you got to kind of wonder about it. I almost wonder whether... I don't know. It's a very good question because, in all honesty, I would have much rather just had a basic fucking Privateer 3 game that was already out instead of what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I agree.
When we were talking about Star Citizen last, I went on their website and calculated what it would cost to buy everything that was on their store page, and it was a fair amount of money. Like it was more than $60 to be sure.
Yeah.
So I'm still kind of unclear about what exactly that game's going to be, even when it comes out.
I don't think they know what it's going to be when it comes out.
Is it going to be like Privateer the MMO? Is it going to be... Because I for one, I love the space combat genre. And I think the last... I'm trying to think. Help me think here, John. Strike Suit Zero? Is that the last just kind of like driving around in space, blowing shit up space combat game?
I guess.
I guess Elite Dangerous, right?
Yeah.
But I
which is now on Xbox in their early access.
need to go back and try that again
preview
because
program.
I really want that game to work. It just didn't ever really work for me. But yeah, I would have loved nothing more. In fact, it's just one of those genres. For a while there, it looked like the adventure game genre was kind of gone, right? And then Telltale really kind of between Telltale and then there's a couple of European companies that have continued to make like the Deponia people, right? That genre is kind of back in, in a little ways.
It's evolved.
Yeah. But I'm well on record as like Wing Commander, Free Space, TIE Fighter, all those games. I fucking loved those games.
Yeah.
And it's to me weird that genre is just gone, outside of like Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen, that we just don't seem to be seeing as many of those types of games. I guess Eve Valkyrie's kind of in there as just a dogfighting game. But yeah, I really wish that if you asked me, I would have rather, like I said the previous time that we brought this up, that they had put out the game that they said they were going to make, and then use the additional funding to bolt this stuff on one at a time later as add-ons instead of trying to make the whole thing start from the ground up.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you on that.
But as far as again, I'm devil's advocate all over the place for this stuff. To go back to it, I still have some pretty strong feelings about like if you donated money to a Kickstarter, you should consider that money to be gone.
Yeah,
it's a speculative thing. It's like speculative investing. If they don't put the game that you wanted out, sorry, that's just what happens. Sometimes the stuff isn't going to work, and
even says on their site like they could not come up with the product. They could spend all the money, not be able to release it, and they're not liable.
Yeah, which is in this case. I think it's different for a $30,000 or that. What the Fig? What was it called?
Yeah, Fig.
Yeah, their game that they're looking to get $75K.
Yeah.
For that game that they're working on. I think that's perfectly valid at this point.
Yeah.
But the amount of money that Star Citizen had, I don't know. It really makes me nervous because that's one of those ones that if it doesn't do something spectacular, I feel like really could damage that whole process. Our next question comes in from Miro, who says, "Hi, Jeff and John. Why is everybody trashing Microsoft for Windows 10's privacy when usually those same people are throwing their personal data at Google, Apple, Facebook, and feel good about it? They all spy on you, make money on your data, and can and did give it to law enforcement. Is it just the image of Microsoft or bad marketing? Then when it's not a problem on mobiles and tablets, why on notebooks and desktops? Just think about all the browsing history and mail Google has archived. I use Windows 10 and have disabled all of the quotey fingers bad privacy options and prefer the new OS to Windows 7. Rage on, Miro from Slovakia."
You picked this because you and I had a discussion about this the other day.
Woo! Of course I did. Of course. No, I think it's an interesting.
You wrote this email, didn't you?
I am Miro from Slovakia. Yeah, that's correct. It's one of my many sock puppet accounts from the website. I am also Mama Afro. No, I'm not. Yeah, so I think this is an interesting question.
It is.
I think it's a really interesting question. What I said to John is that I feel like Microsoft has been trying to do this shit for a long time. And I think that we finally reached a point where they feel like they can get away with it without... I feel like they can get away with it because people are less interested in privacy, from exactly the things that he's saying. Facebook and Google and those places all archive your shit. Google is, I like Google, but I know that they're recording everything. That they're like keeping my searches and like my emails and shit like that.
Well, even if you look at it, there's stuff in like the privacy of Facebook, in the settings, or when Facebook adds a new feature that is hidden down in the trenches, people get upset about it.
Yeah,
they still continue to use Facebook for whatever fucking reason, but that people do get upset about that stuff. I totally understand it. We live in a society where people don't care. Like it's not, and it's weird. Like it's not that they don't care that they're giving away all their privacy and information and stuff like that, because they do care about that, but they don't care about the inconvenience of making them have to do things to stop it.
They are not concerned enough to go through the process of opting out. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Like people don't because again, I did Windows 10. Here's the big thing about the settings. That this was the thing that my point was. Like, not that these settings are there. That's not where my issue is. Is that people made such a big deal about it. It's like, oh my God, these are turned on by default.
Yeah.
And they're hidden deep in the settings to find them.
Yeah.
Just to turn them off. And the funny thing is, I installed Windows 10. The very first screen I got said, hey, these settings are turned on by default. If you want to turn them off, click advanced settings.
Right.
If you don't want to turn them off but want to do the fast start, click start fast process, and if you want to turn them off later, here's how to do it.
Now,
so right there on that screen, I was told what was turned on, and I was told how to turn it off.
Now, here's a question. That when you did your install, it was after that had become a story. Do you think they've retroactively changed that?
I have a friend who told me that that's how it was when it was initially installed.
Okay,
Because I
fair
brought
enough.
it up to him because he got it the first week it launched or whatever before that story had come out, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't understand that either," because I read the screen, and literally the only way you could miss it, because it's in big bold text, and the only way you could miss it was if you went, "I don't feel like reading any of this stuff. Go forward," which unfortunately that's your own damn fault.
Yeah, well, see, like that's where kind of you and I differ a little bit, because I feel like as somebody who's worked in the computer industry for years and years and years, that most people are, the people that are upset about this, the people that he's talking about, people like you and I who read these things on the internet, who are in with this stuff and understand it, right?
Yeah.
My mom doesn't know shit, right? Is going to go, well, I don't know what they're talking about. Fast, go, I don't know, whatever, and that those people, by not, that's the thing that I think kind of gets under my skin, is that by not intimately researching this stuff ahead of time, they're going to be opening themselves, because we already know that a lot of these big companies mine your data and keep your data and stuff like that, right? Microsoft is as Miro here is pointing out, no different than Facebook. Facebook is probably even worse, right? The problem I feel like is, as with a new Microsoft operating system, I am living in fear of the day when their shitty security means that people are able to fish into your system with some browser add-on and then get that list of shit, right?
Yeah,
that
I
maybe,
agree with you on that.
They weren't able to get before. Or there was a story, I think it was last week, that was roving around that was like, part of the EULA for it says that they're able to scan your system and look for pirated, and this was it. The headline was like, Microsoft will scan your system to find any pirated applications or things that you have on there, right?
Yes.
And what it turns out was that it was for stuff that was pirated, that was specifically like stuff from the Microsoft Store.
Yeah.
It's not just everything, right? But even that, it just gets back to this idea of having something of a degree of autonomy by default, that the default setting should be no. And that the thing that I think irks me so much about Windows 10 is that, I know Google is capturing my data, right?
Yeah.
Google's also given me a shitload of benefits for that, right? Like the way that Google, the search engine, can finish my sentence before I was like, oh, you're looking for this, right? Or the fact that like Google has given us more space in our email accounts than like, Yahoo was fucking charging for, a 500 megs when you filled up your 10 megabyte, thing, and Google was just like, fuck it, 2 gigs, whatever. I feel like I'm getting something back for that. I don't feel like I'm getting anything back from Microsoft for letting them do this stuff, right? It just feels like they want to be able to. It was like the example that I made to you was when they were like, oh, yeah, the Kinect will be turned on all the time by default and listening to you. And then, like, if you say pizza, it'll be like, oh, hey, I have Kinect over here. Do you want to order pizza? I can totally get you pizza. I heard you say pizza. And there's a part of me, as an old man, that just thinks that shit should be turned off by default.
Yeah.
That if Microsoft wants to make a case for why you should turn that on, and then they want to try to like, be like, hey, I noticed that you're going to this web, that every day you open up your web browser and you're typing in like New York Stock Exchange into Google, and then you're clicking on New York. Hey, buddy, do you want to see how bookmarks work real fast? Like, I could show you how to do this, right? And then you could say yes, no, or fuck off, or whatever. That's great. But just the idea, like, their rationale for this being turned on was like, it didn't seem to have any real benefit to me, the consumer.
And I can understand that.
And
again, I want to stress, my whole part of the argument was not on whether or not it should be there. It was not on whether it's a bad thing to be there. It was just that I felt that people were
Overreacting.
we're overreacting it, making it sound way more like Microsoft is the evil corporation. They're micro shit or whatever the fuck people call them now.
Right.
My MS dollars or M dollar sign, whatever.
It's 1997.
Yeah, it's 1997. It's like because everyone's hated on Microsoft for God knows how long. So yeah, we have to hate on Microsoft because that's the popular thing to do, and anything that they do is totally 100% evil. And I'm not even saying it's not evil because there's definitely some of the points you brought up. I agree with you completely on a lot of those points.
Right.
My point was just that, hey, it's not as bad as you're making it out to be, because here's the thing. Everyone's making it out that they're not telling you that they're turned on
right.
when they are telling you that it's turned on. Matter of fact, and this is one thing just to kind of get to my point of how much it pains me as a society that we're at. One of the companies that I used to work for basically was a sign-up subscription service.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to sign up, it asks you for your shipping address because it's shipping things directly to your home.
Right.
And then also it asks for your billing address because it charges to a credit card. And they have to have your billing address.
Sure.
There's a box underneath the shipping address that says, use this address as my billing address.
Right.
For a long time, the company left it checked by default, that it was checked, that it would automatically check that. But then we kept having a problem where a lot of people would not look at what it said and just go, oh, it's checked, so I'll just move on. And then we would have problems with...
We're shipping to the billing address.
Well, it would do a thing where the credit card companies would decline the charges because the billing address was wrong.
Right.
So it was like, all right, fine, we unchecked it. And you know what most people do?
What's that?
They don't read what it says. They just put a check mark because they see a checkbox.
Yeah.
They don't want to read it. They just want to get through it as quickly as possible. So they put a check mark in this box that if they didn't check it, there would be zero problems. This company that I worked for actually put an extra checkbox there that said, do not check this box. On the website, just to see what would happen, just so they could see what would happen. Left it unchecked by default. Do you know how many people checked that box? 90% of all people who signed up.
Yeah.
Because people don't fucking read anything anymore.
But see, I feel like you're making my point for me, right? Is that people don't fucking read anything, so
but
90%
that's not the company's fault.
But
that is the person's fault for not reading.
But okay, yeah, you are 100% correct that it is the person's fault. On the other hand, if we know for a fact that 90% of the people are not going to read what that screen says when they're installing Windows 10, they're just going to go, go, then you've got to understand that when it comes out that the company is doing something, that they're going to be pissed off at them, even if it's their own damn fault.
Yeah, no, and
that they should take that into consideration and say maybe like, have like a big fucking window that has two checkboxes that are unchecked that says, we would like to turn on this to expand your experience and blah, 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 and here's all the great things that you're going to get. Do you want to turn this on? Yes, no. Two boxes, unchecked. You can't hit next until you check one or the other, right?
And people won't read it. And they'll just click yes and click next.
Okay, well then...
Because that's the problem.
Okay.
It doesn't matter how big the text is. It doesn't matter if it's flashing red in your screen. It doesn't matter how big the checkbox is. People don't fucking care.
Okay, so as far as I'm concerned... That there's and we're getting into weird nitty gritty
that's
detail.
Where my point is,
right?
On this.
But here's the thing: is that if people opt into a service, whether they've read what that service is or not, if they hit yes and then next, right? They hit yes. That's different than having it turned on by default if you pick the fast installation method. That's all I'm saying. Is that I would much rather live in a place where it's like. When they come back to be all pissed off at you, said, we put up a big window and you click the yes button and that window said, we're going to monitor your shit. Do you want your shit monitored? And if you hit yes and then next, that's your own goddamn fault. Whereas having it turned on by default and then expecting people to read and fucking God damn it. I used to do technical support for like 50-year-olds for a web browser.
No, same here.
They don't know shit.
No.
They don't know shit about shit. They don't know nothing about nothing. They could read that whole thing and they wouldn't understand it unless it was like, we're keeping your data for nefarious reasons, and probably 90% of them would still hit the yes button. Do you want your data kept for nefarious, evil reasons? And they'd be like, yeah, sure. Here. Oh, no, I had to hit yes to go on with the installation. Even if you put the no box before the yes box, they would still hit yes and then continue. But at that point, I feel like it's a different thing than opting in by default. Because when I worked for Microsoft, they had I worked for Microsoft, and there was a product, and I'm not going to get into the specifics because I don't even know if I'm still under... This was like decades ago, I guess. But they had a product where they were capturing people's data by default, and it was browsing data mostly. And they did a bunch of research, and they found out that that if people knew that this was happening, they were very upset. So they switched it to an opt-in program where they would give you a prompt when you were installing this product, and it would say, hey, we want to make this product better for you. Would you consider opting into this thing where you say yes and then we get your thing? But no was the default selection, right? And I feel like that is just fine. I don't like it when the shit's turned on by default.
Yeah. And again, I'm not disputing that part of the argument.
Sure.
My thing is that I do think some people, going back to the point of this question, I do think some people are vilifying Microsoft a little bit too much.
Sure.
Are they 100% innocent and good-natured in everything that they're doing? Probably not. It's probably a 50-50, half evil, half good, kind of situation. There's some people there who are like, but this is the good of it. And the other people are like, yes, just agree to it. We're going to be able to do all these nefarious things because this is enabled by default, you know. I'm sure there's both sides of that because that's going to be with every fucking company.
Absolutely.
I just think that sometimes people vilify companies when they don't take the necessary steps, the extra 2 seconds to read what they're looking at. That tells them in plain, simple terms. Sometimes not. I will admit. Some terms of services or whatever agreements, EULAs. Sometimes they're written in a way that's impossible to understand, and sometimes
or just a serious pain in the ass.
Sometimes they're written in very plain English, and people don't read them because they don't want to.
Right.
But it's just one of those things that it's just. The only reason companies try to get away with that stuff, and yes, it is, but there are companies that use it for nefarious reasons. There are companies that do it just to protect themselves because they have to.
Right.
I don't know where I'm even going with this anymore. I've already lost. It's like I think people need to fucking take accountability for themselves.
Right.
Because too often they try to blame, well, this company's obviously evil.
Right.
I was good and they're taking advantage of me. No, they didn't take advantage of you. You did something stupid that they went, hey.
Well, plus I'll be, and we'll move on after this, but we live in a world where people just don't give as much of a shit about privacy of data anymore.
Correct.
They just don't. Facebook keeps asking me for my phone number, and I keep going, fuck you. I'm not giving you my phone number.
I do the same thing.
Because I come from my dad's all about privacy and when I was a kid, he'd be like, don't ever tell anybody how much you make. That's not nobody's business but yours, right? And like kind of stuff like that. So I necessarily trend towards the I don't want to give people very much personal information. But on the other hand, I look at what people share on Facebook all the time, and it's just like, are you crazy? Are you a crazy person? Anyway, that's enough of that. Miro, I hope you got a big comprehensive answer there. This next one comes in from our friend Martin, who says, Dear Jeff and John, who are on this time, I decided to write a question in rhyme. Good. Thank you, Martin. What are some of the good qualities you can learn from a game? Here are the ones that I'm able to name. Side missions are all about helping a stranger in need, which teaches you to be helpful to others and do a good deed. And if I learned anything useful from playing GTA 5, it's that crime equals punishment, which means cops will arrive. So now I'm done, and I wonder if you could name a few. Will it be 1, maybe 3, or perhaps 2? I'm pleased you read my question, so thanks to y'all. All that's left for me to say now is Skål! Martin from Denmark. P.S. This question was a true landmark. We'll make that decision for ourselves, Martin, about whether I got to say it was
a landmark.
It was minor landmark. I mean,
love Denmark. Yeah. Basically stayed there for about a month and a half.
Cool.
Good place. Cool place. Got to see the Little Mermaid. The statue.
Yes. Yeah, I know. My brain was just putting that together. Okay, so good things that you can learn from playing a video game. This is good. This is a good counterpoint to our video game equals aggression. Yeah. I mean, I've learned about 16 different ways to kill a man that I didn't know. I'm going to say, I mean, I can definitely say that I've learned some degree of patience from video games.
Loading screens, good God.
Pre-patch Bloodborne. Yeah. No, I mean...
the installation for Metal Gear Solid 4.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So much patience.
Dude, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but like I went and got that shit at midnight launch and brought it home and was like, yes, no.
I'm just watching him smoke for however many hours.
And he doesn't even smoke the whole cigarette. He just has like two, he like puts in his little thing and he puts out another one. Things you learn from video games. Okay.
Patience is a good one. Problem solving.
They always said eye-hand coordination is a thing. I don't know. I'm a pretty uncoordinated motherfucker, but I don't know. I think that I've gained a certain amount of empathy, some empathy, maybe, for video game characters. It's not quick decision-making skills.
Yeah.
Not that.
Because apparently we don't have any.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, have you learned anything, John? You tried to think of...
Patience is a good one.
Patience?
I think it's probably a really good one, is just to have patience and then, good, doing good deeds, like he said, doing side quests or little missions or whatever to help somebody is, taught you, I can do good things to help people. And sometimes there's a reward, sometimes there's not. But, sometimes it's just the act of doing the deed that is filling the hours.
Boy, I've played so many. You'd figure I'd have more things to say about this.
Yeah.
Never give up. A certain degree of perseverance, but I don't really feel like that really translates into my human adult life.
Yeah.
I feel like I learned a lot about video games by playing video games.
Yeah, true.
I don't know how much of that actually translates over into my actual honest-to-God real life.
Yeah.
I also don't know why I don't have answers to all these questions, since I do pick them out and read them ahead of time.
Yeah, that's actually also because it's amazing to me how you pick these all out, and then sometimes you're like, oh, shit, this one rhymes.
Yep. Let's see. No. Okay, I'm going to move on to another question. Do you got anything?
Yeah. No, I got.
Sorry, Martin. I'm trying to think of anything.
Some good answers.
Trying to think of anything. All right, this one comes in from Matt. Oh, Matt actually has his phone number on his email. Dear Jeff and John, Matt here. Has an entertainment universe ever captured your interest in a really gripping way? Jeff can't say Dark Souls because I'm going to. I really enjoyed the playthroughs of Dark Souls and Bloodborne and have watched the full playthrough of Dark Souls 2 3 or 4 times, including once in a single sitting on a rainy weekend. Holy shit, that's a lot of John and Jeff. The universe is very appealing to me. As someone who doesn't own a PC or console, I never play these games, but the story just grabs my interest so much that I'm disappointed the next Patreon videos won't be the DLC for Dark Souls 2 or Bloodborne. So has anything in entertainment ever enthralled you? Also, as a small business owner, I really respect your work, and I'm always glad to have that Patreon donation head your way, even if JRPGs make me question my will to live. All praise to the Dong Lord, Matt. This is an easy one. This is a softball, man.
Yeah.
This is just for you, John. I'm just, underhand. It's like T-ball, right? And
yeah.
Just, put it over the plate. Entertainment universes that have captured your imagination. What do you think?
I mean, there's a ton. Like I am a knowledge source of Ghostbusters, of Transformers,
really gripping
comic
way.
books.
Let's say some of the top ones, right? Stuff that you go back to. I mean, have you ever considered like what kind of have you ever considered like writing fan fiction or making a game in a universe of something that hasn't already been made, or making a spin-off game for something that's already existing? Wrestling?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wrestling has been one of those things.
The universe of wrestling?
I actually, and this is going to be really geeky here,
okay.
I actually have participated in what's referred to as eFeds, which are basically role-playing wrestling federations online back in the day.
Like fantasy football? Or?
Kind of. Well, not really. I mean, some of them you used actual real wrestlers and you role played as them, and you faced off. You did promos and stuff against other people, and then whoever was running the thing would then do a write up of an event, and depending on how your writing was versus someone else's writing would depend on who the winner is. And
okay,
it's just stupid way. It's role playing essentially. Sometimes you can create your own character, whatever. We used to do that stuff. Also, a while back, a friend of ours, Randy Lander, owner of Rogues Gallery Comics and Games in Round Rock, Texas.
Just once.
Just once.
Just once. I'd like for somebody to say Randy later without mentioning the whole rest of the thing.
It's contracted. He actually has a contract written up by everybody that you can't.
I ain't signed shit.
That's why you can say it. I can't.
I opted out. That's what I did. I opted out.
You opted out.
Randy had
but no, he started a thing called Marvel Rebooted, which was him and a bunch of friends basically decided, you know what, we're going to completely reboot the Marvel universe.
Yeah, whatever happened with that?
Kind
of petered out.
Kind of petered out. People stopped having time to write it. I actually was in the planning stages for. And got pretty far along in it for writing a story that was basically a wrestling book that took place in the Marvel universe. So
okay.
I mean, comic books are a big thing for me. Like I fucking love comics.
Okay.
Like Marvel, DC, all of that is probably like my entire life is one giant obsession with pop culture, media, entertainment,
sure,
form or another. Whether it be
you don't say
like whether it be Transformers or G.I. Joe or fucking Robotech or
sure
Highlander or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I can say that I mean, let's just take Dark Souls and Metal Gear and put them off the table, right? That's easy. That's easy peasy. I've recently really been a big fan of the universe of both The Expanse, that they're making a sci-fi TV show out of, which is just a kind of sci-fi ships in a universe. It's weird. I watched some trailers for The Expanse show they're putting on Sci-Fi, and like the main character William Holden, I thought he was like he's being played by this dude like in his early 20s, and I'm like he just seemed like a 45 to 50-year-old man in the book, right? Not like a kid. I've always been a huge ass fan of William Gibson's cyberpunk universe, Neuromancer, Burning Chrome, Mona Lisa Overdrive stuff, as well as Dune, which I've talked about before. I mean, I really like that particular universe. I'm trying to think of stuff. I'm trying to think of things where I've ended up like ginning up stories in my own head of from those universes. I know that I just finished the 6th and I think final book in the John Scalzi Old Man's War series that just came out like last month, which was really good.
Never heard of. So.
It's really good. It's really good. I mean, I just plow through some sci-fi. I just started reading The Martian, actually.
Timely.
Yeah. I think we're gonna wrap that up. I mean, I'm just a sucker for good sci-fi, man. Like if it's sci-fi, I generally speaking tend to really like it. I mean, you can kind of go back and listen to some of the stuff where I've talked about games that I felt like should have had sequels: Terra Nova, Strike Force Centauri, or Hostile Waters, Antaeus Rising. Some of those old games that I felt like just never got a full, never got the respect that they really deserved. So I think I'll probably wrap that up. I mean, I was really into DC when back when Grant Morrison was writing Justice League. I was reading a lot of comic books, but I kind of had to give up comics because I couldn't.
They're expensive.
I couldn't juggle the expense of. I mean, once I stopped making, because when I was buying comics, it was in the 90s when I was working for Dell and getting paid way too much.
Yeah.
To the point where I would go out on the weekends and buy like $150 worth of comics and a $30 Mangia pizza, and then just like sit down and just read comics for an entire afternoon.
I remember when I worked for Dell and did something similar to that.
Yeah. But I kind of had to give them up, and I'm glad because I don't like any of the stuff that I'm hearing about DC these days. So
Marvel's good though.
Yeah, never been as much of a. Oh, it's weird. I started with Marvel. I started with X-Men, like a lot of younger kids do, and then I kind of fell out after a while with X-Men. So anyway, all right. Next up, we have one from. I'm going to go with Evan here, who says, "Jeff, I'm in a hell of a pickle, and I need a wise gamer Metal Gear fan for honest advice. I have a 5-year-old MacBook that just can't support the Adobe Creative Cloud I use every week, and could read 4 gigabytes of RAM max. In terms of consoles, the only console for potentially playing Metal Gear Solid 5 I have is an OG PlayStation 3. but I fear that version will be as stripped down as Shadow of Mordor was last year. I just can't contain my hype for Phantom Pain, and I'm trying to figure out how to play it. Simultaneously, I'm due for a new laptop or desktop to support my video editing passions. Do I suck it up and get a PlayStation 4? Do I conform to the master race and offload 2K to allow myself for 2-in-1 like Head and Shoulders? Some friends are telling me to look into Steambox so I don't have to learn how to build a PC in record time. I don't know about that. Sorry for the long email. I'm at a loss trying to give in to the hype, but still act like an adult, and I'm sick of hearing all the dude bros talking about pre-ordering the game, yet couldn't give a flying fuck about what the la-le-lu-le-lo is. Thanks, Jeff. You're a boss. Warmest regards, and hope to find and loot the shit out of your outer heaven when I get my hands on the game. Evan, did you see that from Gamescom? The way that they're going to have like Dark Souls style invasion in Metal Gear Solid 5?
No, I didn't see that at all.
You build your base, right? And then you can build like these satellite bases that come from there, and you can like stock them with people that you've taken and like equipment that you've taken off the battlefield, and you can like put them all together, and then other people can invade your base, and then you get like a notification. You can go back and fight them. It's like the multiplayer. Ooh, I really, just
all right.
For it. Anyway, so, John, what do you think? As a person who's had to come to this, you probably had to come to this decision from time to time, right? It's been, for me, several years since I've had to actually purchase something out of my own pocket.
Well, I mean, like I said, as far as my consoles go, a long time ago, I needed a new PC. Like, this was before the Xbox One and the PS4, so I bought a PC.
Yeah.
Because I wanted a new PC and I wanted a gaming PC, so I bought one. Looking into Steam boxes...
I wouldn't suggest that.
I wouldn't suggest it because anything you buy as a Steam box is going to be way overpriced.
Yes.
In all honesty, you can with just a little bit of research, you can probably buy and or build a cheaper.
Building a PC is very easy. It's even easier now. Every year it gets easier and easier.
Yeah.
The parts are more modular, easier to put together.
And if it's one of those things where you don't want to know, like you're like, I don't want to go buy like a Dell or HP or whatever computer, but at the same time I don't want to have to buy all the parts or whatever. I just want to buy it all one place. There are sites out there that, while they are probably a little bit more expensive than if you were to buy them somewhere else, they still offer they're still pretty competitive compared to the Steam OS boxes or Steam boxes,
right?
Where you can go and they can go, hey, if this is what you want to play, here's what you want. And this is how much it's going to cost. And
I honestly, I have a PC that is now outdated. This is Digital Extremes system that I bought because I just didn't feel like putting a computer together. It's always such a pain in the ass.
I went with mine. I went to like cyberpowerpc.com. And, got a good deal on it.
In all honesty, though, with all due respect to the PC Master Race, it kind of depends on what you're looking to do. I think that these days, I'll be honest with you, if you buy a top-of-the-line PC, which actually, when you say a $2,000 PC, you're not going to be doing that. You can get away with a $900 PC that is just fine for both gaming and doing your video editing. And I know that because I paid $900 for this computer like 2 years ago. So at this point, it should be fine.
My computer, I spent a little bit more money because I bought like a really nice monitor with it, and it ended up being like $1,200 after all was said and done. But that was, again, because of the monitor that I bought with it, and all the extra stuff that was not inside the PC.
Right.
If I had just gone with just the PC and used a monitor that I already had, I probably would have gotten around just $900.
In all honesty, Evan, I think that if you're even thinking about spending $2K on a computer, I would say spend $300 on a PlayStation 4.
Yeah,
it's really, in comparison, it's really not that expensive. You're going to have access to a bunch of stuff. And unless it doesn't sound like he's got a PlayStation 3 and an old MacBook. It doesn't sound like you're like hardcore into PC gaming, right? So get yourself a PlayStation 4 for Metal Gear. That's $300. There's probably even is there a bundle for Metal Gear? I don't think I've heard one. I don't think there is. Anyway,
not that I'm aware of. Or if there is, it's not in the US.
Right. Get yourself a PlayStation 4. If you're going to spend $2,000 on a hardcore PC, spend $300 on a PlayStation 4 and spend $1,700 on a PC that's going to be just fine. And guess what? You got both. Bada bing, bada boom. You're done. spend $300 or on a PS4 now, or spend $250 on a Xbox One.
Yeah.
Of course, it won't be. I think that there was an article last week. I stopped doing these where Metal Gear Solid 4 is running at 1080p native on the PS4 and 900p upscale to 1080 on the Xbox One. But
or shit, buy both.
Yeah.
Buy both an Xbox One and a PS4. But if you're only wanting it for Metal Gear Solid, obviously you only need to buy one of them.
I mean, at this point, I'm still.
In all honesty, I would, as someone who kind of went out and went, okay, well, the Xbox and the new Xbox, the new PS4 aren't out yet. I need a PC for X, Y, Z reasons. I'm going to use this money and spend it on a PC instead of saving it until those consoles came out.
Right.
Like that's the reason I did it. And then once the consoles came out, I went, okay, which console has the games that I want most? It's like literally that's what you need to do. You need to sit down and go, what am I wanting this for? Mm-hmm. And if it's just Metal Gear Solid 4. Just go get a PS4, dude.
That would probably be your best bet.
That's going to be your best bet. And, now if it's like, well, I want Metal Gear Solid 4, but I also want the ability to, I don't know, edit video and stream. Right. I mean, you can still do sharing and stuff like that on the PS4 and stream and do stuff.
Sure.
Like, you can do a lot of that stuff. But, like, I want, photo manipulation. I want,
Well, yeah,
I want all these external whatever features that are, that having a PC is the benefit of. Then yeah, maybe look into getting a good PC that meets all those recommendations. But if all you're wanting it for is Metal Gear Solid 4, just get a PS4.
I'm gonna also step in and say that as somebody, there are a lot of games that would run perfectly fine on my PC that I actually buy for the PlayStation 4 because as somebody who does video editing on my PC is tied up rendering files a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be able to just pop on my PS4, play whatevskis, and not have to worry about it. Like, in all honesty, Zombie that came out last week would probably have looked way better on my PC, but when I'm just continually rendering files and editing stuff and doing things that are like, take a lot of CPU time to do, it's nice to be able to just pop my PS4 on and play whatever the fuck I want.
Also, I've heard the PC version of that game is broken.
Oh, well.
Like every time you use the scanner, it crashes.
Hey, you know what? That's another thing you got to take into consideration is the fact that fucking Arkham Knight, I beat it and played the DLC on my PlayStation 4, and the PC is still waiting for it. So, take that with a grain of salt. This is another Metal Gear question. I'm going to go ahead and skip over this.
No, okay.
Actually, no. We'll do this. I like Vova here sends in good questions. So, hey, Jeff and John, hope you're having an awesome day. Question, what would be your perfect dream team to make a Metal Gear Solid game, but without any of the people who made the previous ones? Thanks for all the raging and selecting, your loyal fan, Vova. So what do you think about who would you have make Metal Gear if not
Kojima?
Mr. Kojima and company. I'm going to say Suda51. No, actually, you know what? There's enough craziness in Metal Gear that Suda51 might be the only person who could match Kojima in just straight up weirdosity. Maybe sweary. Sweary Metal Gear game.
Wow. Yeah. No, sweary.
Swery and Suda51 together in a game made by Platinum. That was what, like Platinum made Metal Gear Rising, but I felt like, and don't get me wrong, the end boss in Metal Gear Rising, he's fucking crazy, and he's like a weird Republican. Like, that's his reason for destroying the world is like, is nutty. But you got it.
It actually kind of led to from your bringing up Metal Gear Rising and Platinum. The dude who made Bayonetta. I don't know if he also is the same person who made Metal Gear Rising or whatever, but the dude who made Bayonetta and Devil May Cry and all that shit. Fuck it, make it him. I don't care.
Kamiya.
Yeah,
Hideki Kamiya. Yeah. Let's see. Bayonetta,
actually, that's the big thing. Give it to Platinum. Give it to have Platinum. Have anyone from Platinum. Just
so there's part of me that wants that, but we've seen what happens when you give Metal Gear to Platinum, right? I honestly feel that there's there's two sides, like that. Platinum, Metal Gear Rising was its own game.
Yes.
But the thing that I usually like in my Metal Gear games is sneaking, and
Platinum's not good at that.
There's no sneaking in that game.
No.
Yes. So
Platinum is all about over the top, out there.
Yeah. But then Metal Gear is less and less sneaking these days. I don't know. I'd probably find somebody I'd probably pull like a Guardians of the Galaxy James Gunn thing. Find somebody who's made some interesting games and then just give it to them, right? Like find one of the developers that have made some real interesting little indie craziness things recently and just hand it over to them and be like, do whatever you want to, right? Trying to think of who that would be, though. I'm going to run down the developers that I know of.
Give it to Double Fine. Tim Schafer will be able to do amazing things with it.
Oh, the Tim Schafer Metal Gear game. Oh boy. I don't know. It could work. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what the last like truly. Who's the Resident Evil 4 guy?
Oh yeah. I can't think of what his name is, but because again,
who made Evil Within?
yeah.
I like his crazy. I like his level of nuttiness. I didn't necessarily care for the Shinji Mikami.
Yeah.
I didn't really care for his. I didn't really care for some of the gameplay elements in Evil Within, but I really do like Shadows of the Damned, Resident Evil 4, and a lot of the other stuff that he's done.
I got it.
What's that?
From Software.
Just
for you, Jeff.
Well, not From Software, Miyazaki, right?
Miyazaki and From Software.
Oh. I want Miyazaki.
Two great tastes that taste great together.
No, I got it. You
got your Miyazaki in my Metal Gear. You got your Metal Gear in my Miyazaki.
You got Miyazaki, you got Shinji Mikami, and Suda51 all together making the new Metal Gear game. It's going to be fucking berserk, and I'm cool with that. There we go. Question answered. All right, one more question, then we're out of here. This is from Alex. He says, Jeff and John, praise the Dawn Lord and whatnot. I have had an absolute shit day. The most stressed I've ever been. Crappy day at work, negotiating an offer on a house, and just general frustration. I like to crack a beer and play video games or watch some Rage Select to relax, but what is your preferred method to relaxing? Jeff, in your case, as your job is playing video games, I imagine it would be strange to play them in your free time. P.S. My partner and I are soon... P.S. My partner and I are soon to be starting a business brewing beer and selling it wholesale. We can actually make a Rage Select beer or even a Rage Select range. For example, Dojo Ale or Savage Tits IPA, Sunday Streaming Stout, or the I Can Finish Super Metroid in 2 hours lager. We live in Australia, so shipping would be hard, but would love to... love when we are up and running to send you some brews for a Ragecast. Love everything you do. Alex. Thanks, Alex. That's great.
Yeah.
How do you relax? It's a question I ask myself every day, and the answer is not well.
You don't relax all that often.
I don't relax very well at all. The drinking isn't really even relaxing to me anymore. So I'll tell you though. I mean, I tend to watch movies a lot in my spare time.
Yeah.
Which gives me a way of kind of disengaging from the interactive nature of video games into a much more passive experience, which can, help me relax a little bit. I just watched that movie Blue Ruin a few days ago, which was actually, I believe, kickstarted. It's like a revenge flick. It's a real weird kind of down-tempo revenge flick. And what's interesting is that I don't know what the main guy of it's from, but there's two actors in that movie. One is Jan Brady.
Okay.
And the other one is, do you remember Kevin from Home Alone's asshole bigger brother?
Yes.
That guy.
All right. Good to see he's still getting work.
Yep. It's on Netflix. I think the people should probably check it out. But yeah, I mean, I like to go to the movies. The drinking stuff has finally gotten to the point now where I'm thinking about just kind of like stepping back from that for a little bit of time. But yeah, I don't know. I listen to podcasts a lot too.
Yeah.
And I read a lot of sci-fi novels now. In fact, that's one of the things that I do. A lot of times, like I said, drinking in me, that's a weird thing, and I don't even like when people speculate on it, so I'm going to not focus on that. But a lot of times I will leave my house and go to a bar and then read a book there,
yeah.
Especially science fiction books. I plowed through all these different authors that, I just finished up the John Scalzi that I'm talking about, just started The Martian. So I do a lot of sci-fi reading. But what about you?
I mean, when I'm like super stressed out, I'll...
Black tar heroin?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. In all honesty, I spend a lot of time with my girlfriend. With Amanda. Sometimes not even doing anything, just spending time with her because that calms me.
Mm-hmm.
But also, when that's also, I'll play video games. I do play video games just because. But then also, I'll watch TV shows. Like one of my favorite things to do is a guilty pleasure. I love watching shitty, like the History Channel's Ancient Aliens series. I fucking love that show to death. Like, I love how terrible it is. I love I love browsing Netflix and finding like these terrible like documentaries on aliens and conspiracies and secret cover-ups and just watching them and laughing because of how fucking stupid they are.
Okay.
I also like watching other things. Like I recently, like one of the shows I've been watching a lot lately is Mysteries at the Museum from Travel Channel.
Okay. What's that about?
It's basically just like it's a travel thing where they go to different museums, and then basically the curator at that museum picks an item and then tells a story about that item, and they do kind of like reenactments of the story as you're watching it. But it's kind of a mysterious past kind of thing.
Okay.
Like sometimes like they go to the Mothman Museum and wherever, and they actually talk about the Mothman, and sometimes they talk about like supernatural stuff. Sometimes it's just history. Like it's like, oh, what's so special about this pair of eyeglasses? Well, it was worn by a Russian spy.
Yeah.
And he did these things, and this is the thing that he did, and he got caught, and now and he ended up in prison, and he died, and now his glasses are given to the museum, and it's this whole history that no one knows about, but it's in this item that's buried in a vault in a museum somewhere.
Okay.
And I find that stuff interesting. Like I like stupid shit like that.
I also just started listening to the podcast How Did This Get Made?
Yeah. How Did This Get Made is pretty awesome.
It's pretty good. Sometimes those guys get a little irritating.
Yeah, they do.
Where it's like, okay, like I would just listen to one from Monkey Shines, and at the end it was just kind of like, I don't know. Some of it felt a little bit forced, but I just started Zardoz, and I'm sure that's going to be pretty good.
There's technically two parts because one of the regular cast members isn't there for the first recording, so then she comes on for the second part.
Oh, okay.
To offer her.
See, I thought that I didn't know what that podcast was.
Yeah.
Like I put it in my podcast feed, and I thought it was literally like the show on the Learning Channel. How Does This Get Made or whatever. But I couldn't figure out why the thumbnail was this Junior with these people on it, and then I finally
the people from the league
loaded it up and started listening to it and was like, oh, this is completely different. The first one I listened to was Jupiter Ascending, and I was just like,
okay.
yeah. But yeah, podcasts mostly. The biggest problem that I have is I have to leave my house to relax because this is where I work, and so I don't like to. It's hard for me to relax here because, especially with the PC in front of my face, there's always something to do.
Yeah, I can totally get that.
A video to render, but. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and the other big thing I do is comic books. I read comic books. I read just lots and lots of comic books.
I need new comic books.
I did start reading actual books again, but they're just autobiographies and stuff like that. Like, because that's novels when it comes to that. Because I get so much fantasy out of my comics.
Right.
I don't care to read any of that shit when it comes to novels. Like, I want like true histories of people in their lives. Like, been reading a lot of wrestler books, books by wrestlers.
Okay.
Currently reading Chris Jericho's third book, Best in the World at What I Don't Know.
Wow. Chris Jericho's got 3 books.
Yeah, it's his third book. And then right after I finish this one up, I got to read Daniel Bryan's new novel. So
fair enough.
So,
well, and I think with that, we're done. This is another podcast in the bag. And don't forget, mail@rageselect.com is the email address if you've got questions to send in. I don't even know how to end. How do you want to end this week, John? It'd be like, so let's go get some chicken wings and read some science fiction.
it's not Wednesday.
It's not Wednesday? God damn it. God damn it.
Because both of those things are on Wednesday.